Chapter 4746. Woo-woo. We don't know why we're here. I was knocked out as I was walking. When I woke up, we were already here. Woo-woo-woo. I want to go home. I want to go home. Woo-woo. I want to go home too. I'm so scared. Mother, I'm so scared. Woo-woo-woo. Woo-woo. When one child started crying, the other children started crying as well. In an instant, the originally dark little house became even more chaotic. However, listened carefully and realized that there are not only boys crying, but also little girls crying. His heart skipped a beat. Could it be that we've encountered human traffickers? However, in the following period of time, he realized that he was wrong. As he did not dare to release his cultivation and startle those people, he could only wait. Unexpectedly, this wait lasted for a few days. The children locked in this little dark house were about 6 or 7 to 10 years old. There were about 30 of them. Ever since they were captured, they had not seen the light of day and had been in the dark. No one came to pay attention to them, and no one brought them food. There was not even a sip of water. At first, everyone would shout that they wanted to go home and call for their mothers. However, as a few days passed, they were so hungry that they had no strength. In a situation where they were thirsty and hungry, the children did not even want to move. How? Or had been sitting in the corner. As he did not know if there were strong people watching them, he did not dare to act rashly. However, he secretly adjusted his breathing and also calculated the time when he was captured. After about 3 days, the door of the little dark house that had been closed finally opened from the outside. "Come out, it's time to eat," someone shouted outside. When the children heard this, they gritted their teeth and stood up. They supported themselves against the wall and walked out. When they arrived outside, they saw that it was an even larger prison cell. Small dark cells like theirs were arranged in a circle around it. Children walked out of each cell, but the expressions and situations of the children who walked out of the different small dark cells were somewhat different. Because the surrounding light was not very bright, but it was not dark either. It was not so dazzling for these people who were used to the darkness for a few days. Therefore, he saw that some of the children who walked out of the little dark houses had a ferocious and bloodthirsty aura. They were clearly young children, but each of them was like a small beast, guarding against people and constantly on guard. After they came out of the little dark house, they quickly rushed to a plate with a dozen steamed buns in front of them. They snatched the steamed buns to eat. For a moment, they were pushing, hitting, biting, and shouting. It was a mess. He could not help but be shocked, because every little dark house was separated in this big prison cell. Just as he was in a daze, he saw that the dozen or so steamed buns in front of him had already been snatched up. Some were stuffing the buns into their mouths, some were still fighting over them, and some were crying and shouting, "Give me, give me, give me a bite." Chapter 4747. At this moment, a man walked out from the middle area. He was holding a plate with a lid on it. He walked to the side of a pillar that was half the height of a person in the middle area. He placed the plate on the pillar and opened the lid, revealing the contents of the plate. A roasted chicken. A roasted chicken that was juicy and shiny, exuding a tempting aroma. This was a rare delicacy for these children who had been starving for days. It was food that made their eyes light up, and they wanted to snatch it at all costs. It's still the same old rules. The winner can eat this roasted chicken. As the man spoke, he closed the lid under the glowing eyes of the surrounding children. After evoking their appetite and thoughts of snatching it, he did not even let them smell the fragrance of the roasted chicken. Just as that person's voice fell, several of the children in the area of the small black rooms suddenly started fighting. The sound of fists hitting the ground was accompanied by roars and screams. Chaos and noise resounded in the surrounding area. Some of the children in the cages shrank into a ball and retreated, watching with fear in their eyes. There were even a few cages where only one child stood at the front of the area. The children behind seemed to be afraid and did not dare to go forward. Pursed his lips and watched quietly. He watched as the children stomped and tore at each other, using all the methods they thought they could win in the battle. Finally, the metal door in front of each area opened. Only the winning child walked out of each room. Of course, They won in their area, but they still had a fight with the children in the other areas. "Let's begin," the man standing by the pillar said. As soon as he finished speaking, 7 or 8 children immediately fell into a chaotic battle. They did not use any special moves in their battles, only fighting methods that they had figured out on their own. However, there were 1 or 2 exceptions. In the end, a short boy who looked to be only 8 or 9 years old defeated the others. However, even though he won, he was covered in bruises and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. However, he walked forward step by step and stopped in front of the man. "The roasted chicken is mine." "Yes, it's yours." The man smiled, patted his head, and handed the roasted chicken to him. A little boy who was gasping for breath looked at the uncovered roast chicken and swallowed his saliva. Suddenly, he charged forward with the intention of snatching the roast chicken. However, at the moment he charged forward, a beam of sword energy instantly struck out and actually slashed him into 2. For a moment, cries of terror rang out along with the panicked voices of the children. Their voices were filled with fear and shock. However, the crowd's cries of terror only rang out for a moment before they quickly quieted down. This was because the children were all covering their mouths with their hands, afraid that they would cry out. They shrank back, but their eyes were filled with horror as they looked at the person on the ground who had been split in half. A moment ago, he was still alive, but in the next moment he was dead. Moreover, he had died so miserably. Horror clenched his fists and the anger in his heart burned. He gritted his teeth, afraid that he would not be able to control himself and do something impulsive. Chapter 47-48. He didn't know how he finished reading all of it. He only knew that, after a while, several mass cultivators in black walked out. They went to each area of the small dark room and selected a few children to take them away. Even the boy who ate the roasted chicken and the few who were defeated by the boy who ate the roasted chicken all left with them. Howard watched from the back as those people left with the children. He took a deep breath and glanced coldly in front of him. Just as he was about to follow the others back to the little dark room, he heard a voice. "You're right. Wait a minute." The man who was originally standing beside the pillar spoke. His gaze swept across the crowd and landed on Hal. He pointed and said, "You come out." Everyone's gaze followed his finger and looked at Hal. In the dim light, he was an inconspicuous child. However, unlike others, he had a calmness that other children of his age didn't have. So sharp, Hal's heart sank. He knew that his leaking anger and gaze had attracted the man's attention. He suppressed his fluctuating emotions and walked to the front under everyone's gaze. A cultivator quickly rushed forward and opened the metal door of that area. Seeing this, Hal walked out and stepped in front of the man. The man put his hands behind his back and walked unhurriedly around Hal. He carefully sized him up. The more he looked, the more surprised he was. After glancing at the calm and expressionless child, he looked at the cultivator dressed in black and asked, "Did you just arrive?" "Yes, sir," the cultivator replied respectfully. But who would have thought that as soon as he finished speaking, a wind blade would fly over and cut off one of his arms. His arm flew out and blood splattered all over the ground. That black-clothed man, after letting out an instinctive scream just now, quickly stopped his voice and trembled as he knelt down. "Do you know why I chopped off your arm?" The man said coldly with his hands behind his back. His bloodthirsty gaze landed on the cultivator in black kneeling on the ground. However, he was paying attention to Hal's expression from the corner of his eye. I don't know," he said with a trembling voice. He really didn't know what he had done wrong. "You don't know? If you don't know, I'll tell you," he said coldly. "Raise your head and look at this child. Is there any trace of panic or fear on him? Does he have the bearing of an ordinary child?" Hearing this, the cultivator in black looked up and happened to see the child looking at him coldly with a calm gaze. Seeing that his arm was chopped off, he didn't even frown. At this moment, his heart sank. He finally knew what mistake he had made. "Get out," the man said and didn't look at him. Yes, the black-clothed man who had lost an arm endured the pain as he picked up his severed arm and staggered backwards. "Which family are you from?" He then turned and looked at Hal. Hal pursed his lips and didn't speak. "Haha, aren't you? Don't you want to go home? Tell me, and I can get someone to send you back." He chuckled and coaxed her. Chapter 47-49. Hearing this, the man narrowed his eyes and smiled. You're really naughty. However, since you don't want to say it, it doesn't matter. I'll just kill you. No one will know what you've experienced, and no one will know where you died. As soon as he finished speaking, he instantly attacked Hao-Er, intending to kill him in one move. However, just as he was about to attack, Hao-Er, who was already prepared, quickly dodged and opened up a distance. Seeing this, the man raised his eyebrows and revealed a look of surprise. I didn't expect it. You've already reached the nascent soul stage? What a pity. He didn't say what a pity it was, but Hao-Er knew that what he meant was that he was going to die in his hands. The people in the dark watched but didn't appear. It seemed that they didn't take the child seriously. Indeed, it was just a child. No one would take him seriously. No one would think that he could leave here alive. However, when they saw the child stretch out his hand and a long sword appeared in his hand, even the people in the dark were surprised. In the next moment, the spiritual power in his body surged, and he waved his sword to attack the man. His spiritual power aura gathered on the blade, and a sharp sword aura instantly appeared on the blade. The whistling sound was accompanied by a murderous aura. When it rushed toward the man opposite him, the sharp sword turned and a cold light flashed. In an instant, even the people in the dark couldn't help but hold their breath. Whoosh! Whoosh! The man in front of him saw the sharp sword chi coming towards him. The sword in the little boy's hand was so fast that he could only see the shadow of the sword but not the blade. He couldn't help but be vigilant in his heart. He became more serious as he dealt with the attack and dodged at the same time. Unexpectedly, when the two swords collided, a sonorous sound accompanied by the sharp sound of the chi blade whistling through the air. Traces of coldness were like sharp blades that cut through his robes, cutting several holes in them. Clang! Whoosh! In a large space, two people, one big and one small, were fighting. The surrounding children were all stunned and did not make a single sound. They were all lying on the other side of the iron gate, watching the scene of the battle. In their eyes, they could only see the rays of cold light refracted and the two figures, one big and one small, flashing past. They were dazzled and shocked by the scene. That child looked 2 or 3 years older than some of them. Some were even about the same age as him, but he could fight with the people here. He was too powerful. Because of the commotion here, the people in black who had left came back. However, they didn't go forward. Instead, they stood not far from the middle and watched. Hiss! When the sound of a gasp was heard, the man's shoulder that had been cut by Hao-Er's sword could not hide his shock. He covered his wound and retreated. A pair of bloodthirsty and fierce eyes glared at the little boy who had also suffered several wounds. Blood was seeping out and staining his clothes red. At this time, there were no less than 10 wounds on the little boy's body. Some were lighter and were external wounds, but there was also a wound that exposed his bones. However, the little boy pursed his lips and didn't make a sound. He didn't even make a sound and looked like he was going to fight to the death. Chapter 47-50. Hao-Er panted and gritted his teeth. He stared coldly at him. Suddenly, his spiritual energy aura surged again. His figure flashed and rushed forward at a strange speed. He swung a fatal blow at that person at a speed that was too fast for one's ears to react to. A powerful sword force whizzed up at that moment. The sword force instantly rose several meters. A visible sword force turned into a huge, sharp blade and ruthlessly slashed at that person with murderous intent. Oh no! Be careful! Get out of the way! No one expected such a sudden scene. Even the few people who were watching the battle in the dark didn't expect that the young child would suddenly do such a thing. They were also shocked at that moment. They didn't even bother to hide their figures and instantly rushed out to save the man. However, they were relatively far away, and Hao-Er's sword strike was so sudden and swift. Even if they wanted to save him, they wouldn't be able to save him in time when that sword strike was about to land. No, that man was also shocked at that moment. His eyes widened and were filled with horror. He retreated step by step. However, just as he turned around to escape, the powerful sword force with a terrifying pressure slashed down. His body stiffened at that moment. It was just a moment of stiffening. What awaited him was the outcome. Death. Ah! A shrill and miserable shriek resounded along with the terrifying sword chi. In the next moment, blood splashed out. That person's entire body had been chopped into two halves. His body scattered on the ground. It was a bloody scene, and everyone trembled in fear. Hiss! The surrounding people all sucked in a breath of cold air. They had just seen him kill a child. At this moment, he died at the hands of another child. Moreover, he died in the same way. It could only be said that this bloody scene, this similar scene, shocked their hearts and stung their eyes. I'll kill you. Among the few people who rushed out, an old man's eyes were bloodshot. His murderous intent filled the sky. The anger in his heart and the two halves of the corpse on the ground stimulated his nerves. He rushed over and slammed his palm down at Hauer. That palm contained the powerful pressure and aura of a godly king expert. That palm contained monstrous murderous intent and anger. It was a determination to kill him. He used almost all of a godly king's strength in that palm strike. Even if he died, there would not be a complete corpse. He would be smashed into meat paste. Even though Hauer had been practicing swordsmanship with his master during this period of time, he could not dodge or block a godly king expert, no matter how outstanding his talent was. Before he could even react, the old man's fatal strike had already landed on his chest with a bang. Bang! The tiny figure was blown away immediately. He had been knocked over a dozen meters away by the great force. However, the scene of flesh and blood did not happen. His organs did not shatter, nor did he put up a final struggle. As a matter of fact, there was not even a sliver of blood from the corner of his mouth. It was as if he had only been pushed away by someone, but it was not a big deal. He was not injured at all. Spurt. Chapter 4751. That's impossible. The few people who came out from the shadows and the surrounding black-clothed men all widened their eyes in shock and gasped. They looked at this scene in disbelief. Because this scene was too shocking, their hearts suddenly rumbled, as if their hearts had flipped over. Their bodies involuntarily trembled, and shock appeared in their eyes. Puffed. Cough, cough. The dying old man twitched on the ground. His face was ghastly pale, and he rapidly aged and withered. He spat out another mouthful of blood and coughed painfully. As he coughed, blood continuously flowed out of his mouth, and his body twitched. No one stepped forward, because everyone knew that he would not survive. After a long silence, a deep and cold voice rang out from somewhere and reverberated in the air. An expert cast a defensive spell on him, so the power of that attack was reflected back as much as possible. However, after this attack, the defensive spell on him was destroyed as well. If we don't kill him now, when will we? At the same time, in Cloud Sky Mountain, the Qing Emperor, who was resting on a soft couch with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes. A deep and cold voice rang out from his mouth, as if he was talking to himself. Someone actually dares to attack my disciple? They must be tired of living. As soon as he said that, he slowly closed his eyes as if he had fallen asleep. On Hauer's side, he heard the voice reverberating in the air. He saw the God King experts surrounding him, but they stopped a few meters away from him. Then, they raised their hands. Some of them condensed a powerful airflow, some raised their swords, and some gathered flames in their hands. Powerful killing intent filled the air along with their pressure, causing the children in the small black hut to faint. I don't care where you're from. No matter who you are, you can't leave here alive today. Go to hell. As soon as the voice that was filled with killing intent fell, the attacks of several people simultaneously attacked him. In an instant, there was a whoosh. Air currents, flames, and sword auras attacked from three directions. They blasted towards Hauer with absolute speed and momentum. No matter what defensive spell he had, he would definitely not be able to escape from this fatal attack. Hauer felt the terrifying pressure and killing intent, seeing that he could neither dodge nor withstand it, and that the aura of despair and death seemed to envelop him. He suddenly thought of his master's words. His master had said that even if he wasn't by their side, he would still be aware of everything that had happened to them while they were out training. His master said that if they encountered something or danger that they could not resolve, they could call him out for help. However, this also meant that he could only fail this once-a-year test. Therefore, at this moment, many thoughts flashed through his mind. In the end, he gritted his teeth and endured. At the same time, he stopped the silver wolf from coming out of the space. He was betting that his master would appear. Whoosh. Boom. Chapter 4752. A figure appeared in front of Howard like a god. He had one hand behind his back and the other in front of his abdomen. A powerful airflow surged around him, and a terrifying pressure and aura pervaded the air. It was breathtaking. "Master!" Howard called out in surprise. His eyes were filled with joy. He knew it. He knew that his master would come to save him. At this moment, the God Kings that had attacked Howard were all knocked to the ground by the powerful streams of air. They vomited blood as they paled as they stared at the expert who had suddenly appeared in shock. Who are you?" The Lotus Supreme Arch glanced at the few God Kings coldly. He did not say anything. Instead, he raised his hand, and the few God Kings on the ground were lifted up by a powerful air current. "No, don't kill us, don't kill." Before he could finish begging for mercy, he stretched out his hand and suddenly clenched it into a fist. Just as he clenched his hand into a fist, a few cracking sounds could be heard. The cultivators' heads tilted to the side, and they instantly stopped breathing. Some distance away, the cultivators in black had their veins broken by the powerful aura. They spat out blood and fell to the ground one by one. After killing those people, the Lotus Supreme Arch raised his eyebrows and said in a low and cold voice, "Trying to run? Come out." He waved his sleeves, and a figure was pulled out of nowhere and fell heavily in front of him. Lotus Supreme Arch. The middle-aged man who was pulled out and fell to the ground was pale. His eyes were filled with shock. He hurriedly got up from the ground and knelt in front of the Lotus Supreme Arch. "Lotus Supreme Arch, please spare my life. You know me?" The Lotus Supreme Arch narrowed his eyes and glanced at the person in front of him. He had no impression of him at all. "Lotus Supreme Arch, I am a subordinate of the Northern Flame Great Emperor. I was fortunate enough to see your face many years ago." He calmed himself down and thought that even the Lotus Supreme Arch would give him some face and spare his life if he mentioned the Northern Flame Great Emperor's name, right? However, just as he finished speaking, he heard an indifferent and emotionless voice ring out. "Oh, so they were from Northern Flame? All the more reason to kill him." The moment Emperor Qing said that, he waved his sleeves. The person who was kneeling in front of him seemed to be suddenly pressed down by a huge mountain. With a bang, his upper body fell forward in a kneeling position. Even his head was knocked out. Blood splattered all over the ground. The head rolled one round and finally landed in a corner. This scene happened almost instantaneously. It was so fast that even Howard, who was standing behind Emperor Qing, couldn't react in time. He couldn't help but be startled when he saw that person's head being chopped off. "What are you waiting for?" The Lotus Emperor turned around and looked at Howard. "Master, can you save them all?" Howard looked at the children who had all fainted under the pressure. "You can't even take care of yourself, and you still have the time to care about others?" The Azure Arch glanced at Yi Futian and said, "I did not come here with my true body. I only sent a clone. If you want to save someone, do it yourself." Howard immediately asked, "Master, have you killed all the cultivators here?" Chapter 4753. As he spoke, Howard took out a strip of cloth and medicine to stop the bleeding. He simply and quickly bandaged the deepest wound on his body. Then, he respectfully bowed to the Qing Emperor. "Disciple thanks Master for saving me. Let's go. Master will protect you for a while longer." The Qing Emperor said. He originally intended to let Howard deal with it himself, but after seeing the deep wound, he changed his mind and stepped forward. "How?" saw this, and a rare smile appeared on his face. He answered loudly, "Yes," and quickly followed. He didn't know why his master changed his mind. He only knew that his master, who originally wanted him to deal with it himself, took him outside for a walk. He didn't even need to do anything. He took care of all the black-robed cultivators outside by himself. "Return to the mountain as soon as you're done. You're the only one left." The Qing emperor said and glanced at Hua. Yes, disciple understands. Hua answered respectfully. Tidy yourself up when you go back, so that the two little ones won't be worried. The Qing emperor said lightly. Okay. Hua nodded. A warm current flowed through his heart. Just as he finished speaking, his master, who was originally standing in front of him, disappeared. When he thought about how his master said that this was not his real body but a clone, he secretly made up his mind. He had to work hard to cultivate. In the future, even his clone must be as powerful as his master. At that moment, he quickly gathered his thoughts and quickly began to deal with the matters here, in Cloud Sky Mountain. In the cave abode, the Qing emperor, who was lying on the soft couch, slowly opened his eyes. He stood up, flicked his robes, and got up to walk outside. After leaving the cave abode, he slowly walked to the stone table under the tree and sat down. He took out wine and wine cups from the space and drank there, enjoying the tranquility and seclusion of this moment. However, after a while, he heard a sweet and happy voice. Master, master, you were bounced over and quickly walked to him. She took out something from the space as if she was presenting a treasure. Master, master, look, this is the gift I brought back for you when I came back. The Qing emperor looked at her and saw her open the small box in her hand. She took out a shiny black jade hairpin and handed it to him. Master, master, do you think it's pretty? This is what I bought after selling some valuable things of ferocious beasts. Ewer said with a beaming smile, then handed over that hairpin to him. The three of them had been here with her master for a year. Her master treated them very well and took care of them. So this time, she earned some extra money and wanted to buy a gift for her master. The Lotus Emperor's eyes lit up when he saw the hairpin. He knew everything that the three of them had gone through when they were training outside. Naturally, he also knew that this little girl had collected the skin, horns, or some inner cores of fierce beasts and sold them. After getting a considerable amount of money, she went to the Babeo house to choose something and finally chose this hairpin. He originally thought that this was a gift for her father, but he didn't expect that it was for him. Thinking of this, his eyes softened. It was unknown what he had thought of, but he picked up the black jade hairpin and said, "And Master will accept this gift." Chapter 4754. Emperor Qing glanced at her and smiled. He said gently, "You're very beautiful. I like you very much." "That's great. I knew you would like it." She clapped her hands and cheered happily. Without waiting for him to speak, she turned and ran back to where she came from, shouting, "Master, I'm going to play with my brother. We're going to the foot of the mountain to wait for him to come back." Seeing that the little girl had run far away, Emperor Qing retracted his gaze and looked at the black jade hairpin in his hand. He then took out the white jade hairpin in his hair. Looking at the two hairpins, one black and one white, he shook his head and revealed a doting smile. His low voice sounded as if he was whispering softly. "This girl, her gifts are all the same." Thinking that his disciple who had gone through a tribulation had returned to his side and was growing up by his side in the same way, he felt incomparably gratified. This time, no matter what, he would protect her well and would never let her suffer the slightest bit of harm, let alone let her suffer the pain of reincarnation. At the foot of the mountain, Mu Chun and Mu Yu were sitting on the steps. Mu Yu was humming a little tune as she looked at the winding mountain path. "Brother, shouldn't we send a message to ask where Big Brother is? Why isn't he back yet? I already asked when we want to find Master just now. He said he was delayed by something, but he's already rushing back here. He shouldn't be able to reach here today. It'll take at least 2 or 3 days." Mu Chan said as he played with a branch in his hand. "Sister, did Master like the gift you gave him?" "Yes, Master said the hairpin is very beautiful and he likes it very much," Ewer said with a smile. Thinking that her master liked her gift, she was very happy. "Why did you think of giving him a hairpin?" Mu Chan asked. "Because Master has everything. I don't know what to give him. If it's medicinal pills, they'll be gone after eating them. As for other treasures, Master must have more than us. I also saw that Master only has that white jade hairpin on his head, and he hasn't changed it after wearing it for so long. So I thought, does Master not have a hairpin? Thinking that he has a white jade hairpin, I bought him a black jade hairpin." As she spoke, Her small face overflowed with a happy smile. She said, "In the future, Master will have 2 hairpins and can use them alternately." The brother and sister chatted here until the sky darkened. Only then did they walk towards the Immortal's cave. A few days later, Howard finally arrived at the foot of the mountain. Due to his injuries, his journey was slowed down. However, he managed to rush back within a month. When he arrived at the foot of the mountain, he saw that his younger siblings were already waiting for him. "Big brother, big brother." The 2 of them shouted and quickly walked to his side. However, once they got closer, the 2 of them also noticed that he seemed to have become much more haggard, and his face was somewhat pale. "Big brother, are you okay? Why does he look so pale? Are you too tired?" Ewer asked. Then, coming to the front of him, she sized him up. After carefully sizing him up, worry appeared on her little face. "Big brother, are you injured? Was it a serious injury? I can smell blood on your body. Where are you hurt? Have you applied the medicine?" Ewer nervously asked. "Brother, here you go." Mu-chun was even more direct. He took out a nourishing pill from his space and handed it to him. Chapter 4755. "I'm fine. You don't have to worry about me. It's just a small injury, and I've already applied medicine with Mother's medicine. The wound healed quickly. Maybe I'm just a little tired from rushing back, but it's not a big deal." Howard comforted them while saying to Mu-chun, "Put away the medicinal pills. Big brother has some in his space, and we ate them on the way." Mu-chun paused for a moment, thinking that his mother had prepared a lot of medicinal pills for the 3 of them. He put away the medicinal pills. "Big brother, come here and take a rest first." "You?" Took his hand and sat down on the stone steps. She took out some water and said, "Big brother, drink some water." "Okay." Howard didn't refuse her kindness. He took a few sips from her hand and felt the dryness in his throat ease a little. Then he asked, "How long have you been waiting here?" "We've been waiting here since morning, but we didn't slack off. Big brother and I were reciting the mental cultivation method here just now." Ewer said with a smile. "You didn't encounter any danger on your way back, right?" He didn't ask in detail on the communication jade. Now that he saw them, he asked. "There was no danger. It was something that we could deal with. We weren't injured." Ewer said, "Well, it was just a small matter." Mu-chun also said. He looked at him and asked, "Big brother, did you meet a very strong person?" "It's a long story. I'll tell you in detail after we meet Master." After resting for a while, he stood up and said, "Let's go and pay respects to Master first." "Okay, Master has already said that we should go together when you're back." Ewer said and stood up with him. The 3 of them went up the mountain together. When they arrived in front of their master's cave residence, Howard shouted, "Master, disciple is back." "Master, we're here too." Ewer also raised her voice. "Come in." Qing Emperor's voice came from the cave residence. When the 3 people outside heard this, they looked at each other and walked in. When they came in, they saw their master sitting at the stone table and drinking tea. There was something like an invitation beside his hand. "Greetings, Master." The 3 of them respectfully saluted. "Yes." He glanced at the 3 of them and said, "You all did very well in the test this time. You all completed the task within a month, although there were some accidents in between." As he spoke, his gaze landed on Howard. He asked, "Have your injuries healed?" "Master, I've recovered from all my minor injuries. There's only one wound that's a little deeper and hasn't fully recovered, but it's not a big deal," Howard said respectfully. At the same time, he took out a chinquin bag from his space and said, "Master, this is the crystal core that I obtained from hunting. Keep it for yourselves. Even if you give them to me, I have no use for them. What's more, they're all yours." Emperor Qing said unhurriedly. He looked at the 3 of them and said slowly, "Seeing that you have done well this time, I will take you to a banquet in 3 days to let you see the world. In these 3 days, those who need to recuperate should recuperate, and those who need to cultivate should cultivate. We will set off in 3 days." Chapter 4756. Emperor Qing nodded, and his expression softened a little. Then he took out 3 immortal fruits from his space. "This is a reward for the 3 of you. Take it back and eat it. It can increase your spiritual power by 100 years. "Thank you, Master." "Thank you, master," the three of them said in unison. They happily went forward to receive the fruits, bowed, and then left. At the same time, in the East Sea Spirit region where Xian Yuan Mo's cultivated his soul, Gu Imo, who was guarding this place, was patrolling the sea with his men. Ever since their master had left to travel, the leaders of the 8 Phoenix Guards had been taking turns to guard this place. It was also because there would be strange movements here every once in a while. Therefore, even with them guarding this place, they could not suppress the curiosity and adventurous thoughts of those people. They knew that the Yama Lord existed in this sea, so they came to guard this place. However, in the eyes of others, they thought that there was some great fortune and treasure here. Even if there was a risk of being discovered and killed, there would always be people who would take the risk to explore. "Captain, we caught 3 rogue cultivators who intended to sneak into the sea," a Phoenix Guard reported. Gu Mo, who was patrolling the sea with his men, frowned and said, "Bring them to the sand by the sea." As soon as he finished speaking, he led his men back. At this time, it was almost noon. Although there were clear orders not to approach the East Sea Spirit region, there were still many cultivators wandering around. Therefore, when they saw the Phoenix Guard catch 3 rogue cultivators and bring them to the sand by the sea, the eyes of those cultivators who were watching from afar flashed. Let me go, let me go. What right do you have to catch me?" A cultivator struggled, wanted to break free. However, the ones who were holding him were strictly trained Phoenix Guards, so naturally, they would not let him break free so easily. "We didn't do anything. What do you want to do? Let us go." Another person also shouted. Even if he forced himself to be calm, there was still fear in his eyes. The East Sea Spirit region is not your territory. So what if we sneak in? Let us go. Another person also shouted, but no one answered him. The Phoenix Guard took them to the sand by the sea. He kicked the back of their knees and coldly shouted, "Kneel." As soon as he said that, he pressed down with his hand. The 3 of them were caught off guard by the kick. They cried out in alarm and instinctively knelt down. "Captain," when the Phoenix Guards saw Gu Mo return, they immediately called out respectfully. Their sonorous and powerful voices could even be heard by the cultivators in the distance. The 3 of them raised their heads and looked at the person in front of them. He was dressed in a low-key purple robe and had a jade belt around his waist. There was a token of the captain of the Phoenix Guards on his waist. Looking up, he had an outstanding appearance and a cold expression. He had the aura of a leader. This was one of the 8 captains of the Phoenix Guard under Ghost Dr. Fungio. The hearts of the 3 people stagnated, and their breathing became chaotic. Their bodies trembled slightly due to panic and fear. Cultivators are not allowed to approach the Eastern Sea Spirit region. Don't you know that? Gumo's cold voice rang out. We didn't do anything," one of them said in a trembling voice. Don't kill us. We really didn't do anything. We just wanted to go to the bottom of the sea to see if there was any immortal mansion." Chapter 47:57. He had his hands behind his back, and his voice was indifferent but low. Although his voice, which contained spirit energy, was not loud, it spread clearly and fell into the ears of the cultivators in the distance. "We, the Phoenix Guards, are guarding this place under the orders of our master. Anyone who crosses the line drawn by the Phoenix Guards will be regarded as an enemy of our master. We have never been merciful to our enemies." He glanced at the 3 cultivators kneeling on the ground and instructed the Phoenix Guards at the side, "Cripple their cultivations and expel them from the line. Let them fend for themselves. If anyone crosses the line and wants to enter the Spirit East Sea, kill them on the spot once you catch them." "Yes." The Phoenix Guards responded respectfully. After crippling the 3 cultivators' cultivations, they threw them out of the line. With their cultivations crippled, shrill screams rang out, causing the cultivators in the distance to feel a chill in their hearts. As cultivators, if their cultivations were crippled, they would not be able to live for long. After all, people who had cultivated to that stage were already of a certain age. Once they lost their cultivation, they naturally had no way to live. What do you think is at the bottom of the East Sea? Is it worth them guarding it so strictly? They don't have any secret treasures in the sea, but they don't allow anyone to enter. The more they do this, the more it arouses the desire to investigate. However, you've all seen the outcome of being caught. Almost no one is lucky enough to escape. Do you really want to know what's in the sea? The cultivators discussed in low voices. However, no matter how curious they were, they could not know what the Phoenix guards were guarding. At this moment, a few rays of light descended from the sky and landed in front of Guillermo on the sand by the sea. Guillermo looked at the few people in front of him. They were 3 old men, a woman, and a middle-aged man in a luxurious robe. They were all very powerful. However, the 3 old men and the woman were standing behind the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man in the luxurious robe seemed to be their master. "Are you Guillermo, one of the 8 great Phoenix guards?" The middle-aged man in the luxurious robe smiled. His gaze fell on Guillermo and sized him up before he nodded. As expected, the ghost doctor has no weak subordinates. "I didn't expect you to have such a cultivation at such a young age. Who are you? Why have you come here?" Guillermo asked, his gaze landing on the other party. The middle-aged man waved his sleeves, and a soundproof barrier appeared around them. Then he said, "I am the sovereign of the Southern Territory. I am here to inquire about something." His gaze moved away from Guillermo and landed on the Eastern Sea. He asked, "Are you guys guarding here because the Azure Dragon Sovereign is in the Eastern Sea?" Hearing that, Guillermo's eyes flashed slightly. He glanced at him. He knew that the Yama Lord had gone through a tribulation and gone missing. The world that the Yama Lord controlled was in great turmoil as well. Others might not know, but the lords of the heavens and earth would more or less know. Coupled with the strange happenings in the Eastern Sea during this period of time, and the fact that they were ordered to guard this place, it wasn't difficult for them to guess. Therefore, he didn't hide anything and said, "That's right, the Yama Lord is in this spirit realm, so my Lord ordered us to guard this place." Master had also instructed that if any lords of the heavens and earth asked about this matter, they were to tell the truth. This was because she did not want those lords of the heavens and earth to disturb the nourishment of the Yama Lord out of curiosity. Chapter 4758. I see. Thank you for telling me. He nodded slightly and smiled. Actually, I'm not the only one who came to ask today. The other sovereigns are also very curious. That's why I made this trip. I hope you don't misunderstand. Hearing this, Gumo's expression was indifferent. She said, "My master has already made it clear that if the sovereigns of the various realms come to ask, we are to tell them the truth. Firstly, we want you to know why we are guarding this place. Secondly, we hope that the sovereigns of the various realms will not disturb the Yama Lord's quiet recuperation. Also, this matter can be passed down to the sovereigns of the various realms. However, my master has also made it clear that if anyone dares to disturb the Yama Lord's quiet recuperation after knowing the reason, she will not let them off." The South Chung sovereign's eyes flashed, and his heart skipped a beat. What she meant was that she wanted them to know about this matter. However, if anyone were to disturb the Azure Dragon Sovereign's quiet recuperation in the sea, she would not be courteous to them. Thinking of the ghost Dr. Fengjiu's methods, the South Chung sovereign smiled and said, "I understand. When I return, I will definitely pass on the ghost doctor's words to the other sovereigns. I won't disturb your patrol any longer. See you again." He cupped his hands and looked deeply at Guillermo. Then, he waved his hand to remove the soundproof boundary and left with the others. After watching them leave, Guillermo ordered the Phoenix Guards to patrol the surroundings and changed a team to patrol the sea. He then took out his communication jade and informed his master, who was traveling, about the matter that the South Chung monarch had come here to inquire about. On the other side, Fengjiu had been wandering around alone. Recently, she came to Heaven Mountain again. The last time she came here, she could not enter because of the boundary. This time, she entered the boundary alone. She did not go to the cave abode where Imo-chan was cultivating his immortal body. Instead, she went to the snowy peak at the top of the sky where Tion Jizi often sat. She sat there cross-legged with her eyes closed. No one knew how long she had been sitting there. Her red robes were covered with a layer of snow as thick as a palm. Her original red robes were covered with white snow. Even her black hair was dyed white by the snow. She sat there motionlessly, as if she had become one with the world. If one did not look carefully, one would not be able to tell that the person sitting there was alive. At the peak of the snowy mountain, it was quiet. Only the sound of snowflakes and the whistling of the cold wind could be heard. After an unknown period of time, she slowly opened her eyes. At this moment, a layer of snowflakes had gathered on her eyelashes. As she opened her eyes and looked up, her eyelashes gently fluttered and the snowflakes fell with her. Looking at the vast expanse of whiteness in front of her, she opened her mouth slightly and gently exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. In an instant, she felt refreshed all over, as if a pure aura flowed through her body as she exhaled the turbid air. It was very comfortable. She sat there without moving, only adjusting the spiritual energy in her body. Following the circulation of the chi in her body, the snow on her body also scattered and fell. At that moment, the dazzling red robe on her body was even more dazzling in this vast expanse of white snow. She took out her communication jade from her space. When she heard Gumo's words, she held her communication jade and looked ahead with an unfathomable expression. Chapter 4759. Arriving in front of the cave, she stopped in her tracks. Looking at the entrance of the cave, which was covered with a barrier, her eyes flashed. Tianjizi had died because of Mo Zhe, and Mo Chun had died because of her. Now that it was difficult for him to condense his immortal body, no matter what, she had to help him condense his immortal body so that he could ascend to immortality and enjoy eternal life. Although she had not yet ascended to immortality, she now had enough power. She believed that she could help him. Lifting her hand, she gently waved it, and the barrier in front of her broke. She stepped into the cave and walked forward step by step until she saw the golden lotus, which was sealed in ice. On top of a block of ice in the cave, there was a golden lotus which was emitting a faint light. Because it was sealed in ice, the aura of the golden lotus did not spread. However, standing there, Feng Jiao could clearly feel the familiar aura emitting from the golden lotus. Golden lotus incarnation, condense and ascend. Mo Chun, you've done so much for me. It's time for me to do something for you. She murmured softly, then slowly raised her hand and placed it on the ice. A pure spiritual aura, accompanied by the rich, ancient green lotus aura, slowly seeped into the ice and headed towards the golden lotus in the ice. A green light gradually rose from Feng Jiao's body and surrounded her. The green lotus aura and pure spiritual energy were injected into the golden lotus in the ice. The golden lotus, which was originally emitting a gentle light, gradually grew stronger and the half-closed lotus flower gradually opened. As time passed, Feng Jiao continued to stand there, controlling the green lotus aura and pure spiritual energy in her body to transfer to the golden lotus. Until, 2 days later, Kacha, the sound of ice cracking could be heard in the cave. A small crack appeared on the ice, slowly extending and expanding. Crack! Another cracking sound rang out, and more cracks appeared on the ice. Gradually, it covered the ice that was half the height of a person. In the next moment, another cracking sound came from the ice. This time, it shattered, and the ice scattered all over the ground. It turned into countless pieces that landed on the ice stone, then turned into water and disappeared without a trace. At the same time, the entire cave was covered by a dazzling golden light. A gentle aura spread out along with the golden light. Feng Jiao felt that the light from the golden lotus was too dazzling and slightly averted his eyes. However, in the next moment, he felt a fluctuation in the air and a familiar aura spread out. She turned around abruptly and saw that the light from the golden lotus had dissipated. Even the golden lotus had disappeared without a trace. However, what appeared next was that familiar person, Mo Chun. He was still dressed in elegant, snow-white robes, and his ink-black hair draped over his shoulders. He looked natural and beautiful. His body emitted a faint layer of golden holy light. His entire body was shrouded in the golden light, and he looked holy and otherworldly. What was different from before was that this time His body was no longer illusory, but an immortal body formed by the Golden Lotus. Chapter 4760. Geo. Imo-chen's gentle voice rang out. A faint smile appeared on his celestial face. His deep and calm gaze landed on Fengjiu, who was dressed in red. Imo-chan. Fengjiu looked at him and also smiled. Today, I will help you ascend. Congratulations on attaining the Blue Lotus. Imo-chan said gently. He looked at her and said, now that my immortal body has been formed, you don't need to help me anymore. Once I finish the heavenly lightning tribulation, I can ascend and become an immortal. 81 bolts of heavenly lightning. This is no small matter, Fengjiu said. Hearing this, Imo-chan shook his head slightly. There was a gentle smile on his lips. I am an immortal body formed by the Golden Lotus. The heavenly lightning tribulation will only strengthen my immortal body. It won't be a problem. Fengjiu was slightly surprised. 81 bolts of heavenly lightning tribulation will only strengthen your immortal body. Yes, you forgot that I'm not an ordinary cultivator. My physical body has long dissipated. Now that I have condensed an immortal body, the heavenly lightning tribulation won't do me any harm. On the contrary, it will only benefit me. As if he had sensed the changes in the sky, he looked at her and said, the heavenly lightning tribulation is gathering and the weather is changing. Geo, I have to go. With that, he slowly walked out. His steps looked like he was walking on the ground. However, if one looked closely, they would see that he was walking on the wind. He did not touch the ground. Fengjiu saw him leave the cave and quickly followed him. As soon as they left the cave, they felt the terrifying chi in the sky gathering at the peak of Sky Mountain. The wind and clouds surged, and the muffled sound of thunder came from the clouds. This scene was very similar to when Imo-ze had broken through. Fengjiu's heart skipped a beat. However, when she thought of Imo-chen's words, she could not help but look at him. Imo-chen's expression was calm. He walked slowly to the peak of the mountain and stopped. He turned to look at her. Geo, today I'm ascending. In the future, we can only meet again in the immortal world. I hope you can safely pass through the tribulation. Everything will be fine. He spoke slowly and looked at her deeply with a calm and serene gaze. Then, he retracted his gaze and turned around to sit cross-legged in the snow. His hands formed the shape of a lotus and placed between his knees. I will. Let's meet again in the immortal world, Fengjiu said softly. He stepped back a little and prepared to guard him here and watch him ascend safely. Boom! In the sky, a loud rumble of thunder resounded through the clouds. The wind and clouds surged, and the sound of heavenly thunder alarmed all realms. Boom! As a bolt of lightning streaked across the sky, the first bolt of lightning struck down with a rumble. The two bolts of lightning intersected and landed on Imo-chen's body, creating a powerful shockwave. She was worried, but when she saw that Imo-chan was still sitting there quietly after the bolt of lightning struck, she finally relaxed. It looked like what he said was true. When he ascended and became an immortal, the heavenly thunder would only strengthen his immortal body. It would not harm him and would instead benefit him. She was relieved. At the same time, the sovereigns of all realms were alarmed by the sound of heavenly thunder. A few of them were talking about the East Sea spiritual region. When they heard the sound of heavenly thunder, they immediately stepped out of the main hall and went outside. Is that the sound of heavenly thunder the sound of ascension? One of them was extremely shocked. Could it be that the ghost Dr. Fengjiu has ascended? Another person also looked at the sky in shock. Chapter 4761. Hearing this, they looked at each other and immediately said, "Let's go." With that, they waved their sleeves and instantly turned into several streaks of light and flew up into the sky. At the same time, in the upper immortal realm, when the four great emperors noticed the strange movement below, their expressions turned extremely ugly. Could it be that the ghost, Dr. Fengjiu, has ascended? They all guessed at the same time. In their opinion, the only one who could ascend was the ghost Dr. Fengjiu. Other than her, no one else dared to try. Even if they wanted to try, the opportunity was hard to find. Immediately, they arrived in front of their respective water mirror. With a wave of their sleeves, they saw the person in the water mirror who was undergoing heavenly lightning and ascending. Who is this person? They were unfamiliar with Mo-chan, so they couldn't guess who he was. However, when they saw that the person's eyes were tightly shut, his appearance was outstanding, and his temperament was refined, they couldn't help but secretly praise him. I didn't expect that in the lower immortal realm, apart from Xinyuan Mo's and the ghost Dr. Fengjiu, there would be such a banished immortal. How surprising, eh? This person is already an immortal? One of the great emperors took a closer look and was very surprised to see that the person below who was undergoing heavenly lightning already had an immortal body. Since it's an immortal body, ascension is also in accordance with the heavenly Tao. It seems that another great emperor will be born in the upper immortal realm. Perhaps because they saw that the person below was already an immortal body, they didn't make things difficult for him. This was because they knew that once an immortal body was formed, ascension was only in accordance with the heavenly Tao. If they tried to stop him, the heavenly Tao would probably not tolerate them. Therefore, they waved their sleeves and turned to leave the water mirror. When they arrived outside, they sent a message to the other great emperors and prepared to discuss whether they could rope this person in after he ascended. He would be a great help in the future. However, because Fengjiu had retreated further away to protect Mo-chan, the four great emperors only saw that Mo-chan was undergoing heavenly lightning and didn't notice the red-robed Fengjiu further away. On the other side, Emperor Qing, who had brought Mu-chan and Mu-yu to attend the banquet, also sensed the abnormality in the lower realm. Thus, he flicked his sleeve, and an image appeared in front of him. It's Uncle Mo-chan. When Hao saw the person enduring the heavenly lightning, he couldn't help but exclaim softly and quickly went to his master's side. I want to see it too. I want to see it too. Er also quickly stepped forward and, blinking her pair of big eyes, she looked at that person who was sitting quietly with his eyes closed. It really is Uncle Mo-chan. Is he advancing? Mu-chan asked in surprise. The Azure the Arch glanced at his three disciples and said slowly, he is preparing to ascend. After experiencing 81 bolts of heavenly lightning, he can ascend and become an immortal. He will be ranked as the 9 heavens supreme the Arch and live as long as heaven and earth. Is he as powerful as Master? Yu curiously raised her head and looked at him. Yes, but even if we are both 9 heaven supreme thearchs, there are differences in strength. I have cultivated for tens of thousands of years and cannot be compared to just anyone. He said slowly, his voice neither fast nor slow, and there was a hint of arrogance in his words. Master, will Uncle Mo-chan be in danger when he ascends? Hao couldn't help but ask worriedly. This was because he remembered that their father had encountered heavenly lightning during his ascension. Chapter 4762. Hearing this, the three of them looked at each other and smiled happily at the same time. It's good that there's no danger. Maybe Uncle Mo-chan has ascended and we'll have a chance to see him in the future. Mother? It's Mother. Mother is there. Yu looked at the corner of the screen in surprise. There was a red figure. That figure was far away, but they knew that it was their mother. Hearing Yu's words, Hao and Mu-chen's mind suddenly shook, and with anxiousness in their eyes, they promptly searched that picture. Sure enough, at the most corner, they saw a tiny red figure in that snowy ground. It's really Mother. Hao and Mu-chen were happy. They hadn't seen their mother for more than a year. Master, I want to see Mother. We want Mother. Yu pulled on Emperor Qing's sleeve and looked at him with hope. Emperor Qing looked at the three children and waved his hand to show the main view of the red figure Fengjiu. Mother, Yu missed you so much. Yu shouted at the screen. She knew that her mother didn't see her and couldn't hear her, but she still called her. Mother, we missed you too, Hao and Mu-chen said. Their throats were choked and tears were in their eyes. They missed their mother. They missed their mother so much. When could they see their mother again? How could they be together with their father and mother? Seeing that his three disciples were about to cry, Emperor Qing waved his sleeve and the screen disappeared. He turned and walked to the front of the ship with his hands behind his back. Cultivate well. In the future, when your strength increases and you have the ability to protect yourself, when your mother ascends to the 9 heavens, you'll have plenty of opportunities to see her. Hearing this, the 3 of them looked at each other and wiped away their tears. They nodded heavily. Yes, Master, we'll cultivate hard. We'll become very powerful in the future. Seeing this, Emperor Qing nodded and said, Go and rest. There's still 2 days to go. You have to recuperate your mental state and don't embarrass me when the time comes. Yes, the 3 of them replied before returning to their cabins to rest. On the other side, the South City Sovereign and the rest were surprised when they arrived at the area where Mo-chan was advancing. They thought that the one ascending here would be the ghost Dr. Fengjiu, but they didn't expect it to be Nailan Mo-chan. So it's him who's ascending. However, didn't he disappear from the world long ago? How could this be? One of the sovereigns stared in astonishment at Mo-chan, who was being tempered by the heavenly lightning. Yes, in that battle back then, many cultivators saw him die, protecting the ghost Dr. Fengjiu. At that time, I saw him disappear from the sky with my own eyes. Not even his corpse was left behind. I didn't expect him to still be alive, and now he's in the ascension stage. It's really unbelievable. Look at his body. It seems a little different. Also, there's a golden lotus between his eyebrows. Could that be an ancient golden lotus? One of the sovereigns said as he stared in astonishment at the golden lotus between Mo-chan's eyebrows. The South City Sovereign pondered and said, I wonder what kind of fortuitous encounter he had. He could be reborn and even ascend to become an immortal. Chapter 4763. Back then, the Azure Dragon Sovereign couldn't withstand the 81 bolts of lightning and died. Is this Nailan Mo-chan more powerful than the Azure Dragon Sovereign? Can he survive this tribulation and ascend directly? No. Look at the immortal chi surrounding him. It seems like he already has an immortal body. Ascending to the 9 heavens is in accordance with the heavenly Tao. He should be different from the Azure Dragon Sovereign. Hearing this, the few of them were stunned. Upon closer inspection, they could see that the immortal chi surrounding this person was indeed different. They didn't get too close, afraid that the lightning would strike them by mistake and cause them to suffer for no reason. Because they were quite far away, they didn't plan to greet Fengjiu after they found out the reason. Instead, they looked at each other and left first. Fengjiu, who was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed, opened his eyes and looked in the direction where the sovereigns left. He looked at Mo-chan in front of him and then closed his eyes to continue cultivating. With her guarding this place, ordinary people wouldn't dare to casually attack Mo-chan. She could also use the immortal chi around her to cultivate, which was extremely beneficial to her. It was different from the 3 bolts of heavenly lightning a day that Mo-ze struck when he was advancing. Perhaps it was because Mo-chan had already formed his celestial body, but the bolts of heavenly lightning that struck his body would strike again after the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn. It could be said that there was no pause. She could feel it from where she was. It was just as Mo-chan had said. These bolts of lightning could only make his celestial body stronger. After each bolt of lightning fell, the celestial chi in his body would overflow again and again. Not to mention the surrounding celestial chi. Even the celestial chi around him was very thick. She believed that in a few days he would be able to ascend to the 9 heavens 2 days later in the immortal realm on the flying ship. The Lotus Emperor called out his 3 disciples. Master, Master. The 3 of them called out to him and looked at him, waiting for him to speak. The Lotus Emperor looked at the 3 of them and said, Master has refined 3 illusory weapons for you. They can change your appearance. After wearing the illusory weapons, even if someone stronger sees you, they won't be able to see your original appearance. As he spoke, he flipped his hand, and 3 simple rings appeared in his palm. Hearing his words, the 3 of them looked at the 3 rings curiously. After picking up the 3 rings, Ur asked curiously, Master, you refined these? When did you refine them? You can also refine illusory weapons? Then why did you give them to us now? Hearing this, Emperor Qing glanced at her, leaned back, and said unhurriedly, This illusory device is not an ordinary item, and it takes a lot of time to refine. It took me nearly a year to refine it. After you drip your blood on it, it will change your appearance according to your original appearance. Don't take it off after you put it on. Yes, thank you, Master. As Hao and Muchen spoke, they bit their fingers and dripped a drop of blood to claim ownership. Then, they put the rings on their fingers. The originally loose rings shrunk to the size of their fingers after putting them on. Then, the rings on their fingers became invisible, as if they weren't wearing any illusion rings. It's gone? Chapter 4764. Sister, your appearance has changed. Muchen looked at her little face, his eyes flashing slightly. She was obviously still the same person, but her appearance had changed slightly. It was not that she had completely changed into a stranger's appearance, but she had become somewhat similar to her original appearance. Brother, your appearance has also changed. Yu looked at her brother and asked with a smile, Brother, are we still the same now? Hao carefully looked at their appearance and shook his head. No, but there are some similarities. But I can see that you are two different people. Brother, look at your appearance. Yu took out a mirror from her space and pointed it at him. Brother, you also look very good like this. Hao looked at his appearance in the mirror and saw that it was very different from his original appearance. It was only somewhat similar to his original appearance, but in fact, it was not as good looking as his original appearance. This is very good. In this way, even if outsiders saw their appearance, they would never think that their parents were Xinyuan Mose and Fengjiu. Qing Emperor looked at the three of them and slowly said, This illusion ring will change your appearance as you grow up. Wear it today and do not take it off. In the future, when you have the strength to protect yourself, you can take it off if you want to. Yes, thank you, Master. The three of them responded and bowed to express their gratitude. Another day passed. Hao Mu-chun, and Yu were standing at the bow of the ship by their master's side. They were looking at him as he pointed ahead and told them what kind of place this was. Suddenly, they heard an extremely loud heavenly thunder falling down. In the distant sky, a seven-colored rainbow streaked across, and faintly, a heavenly music was coming out. So beautiful. Yu's eyes were shining. She looked at the seven-colored rainbow in the distance and asked, Master, why is there a rainbow there? There seems to be the sound of someone playing a zither there. It's so nice to hear. Qing Emperor looked into the distance and slowly said with his hands behind his back, It's the strange phenomenon in the sky when Mo-chun is about to ascend. Hearing this, Hao and Mu-chun also looked into the distance and couldn't help but smile. Uncle Mo-chun was finally going to ascend. At the same time, at the peak of the heavenly mountain, after the last bolt of lightning struck, the surrounding spiritual energy surged and a whirlpool appeared in the sky. The whirlpool was not the usual grayish-white and black color, but a bright rainbow color. It was as if a rainbow had formed a ring of clouds that extended from the sky towards Mo-chun. Among the clouds, celestial music was playing. It was very pleasant to listen to, and the immortal magpies circled around the seven-colored clouds. It was a beautiful sight to behold. Fengjiu stood up, her eyes filled with joy and excitement. She looked at the white-robed Mo-chun standing in front of her, his sleeves fluttering in the wind. She looked at the smile on his lips. Divine light enveloped his body, and divine qi spread out. She looked at the elegant and gentle smile on his fairy-like face as he looked at her. She looked at his white figure, which was reflected by the divine qi in the whirlpool, and his figure flew into the sky. Mo-chun, take care. We'll meet again in the future. She raised her voice and waved at him. A happy smile bloomed on her beautiful face. Chapter 4765. Following his successful ascension, the seven-color vortex that appeared in the sky gradually closed up as if it had never appeared in the first place. However, at this moment, almost all the cultivators in the various realms noticed this. Even though he had only ascended for an instant, the appearance of the celestial music and the strange phenomenon in the sky made it difficult for them to ignore. Fengjiu stood at the peak of Sky Mountain, and looked at the surroundings that had returned to normal. Then, he turned around and looked at the cave behind him. He thought of Tianjizi and Emo-chun. Now, Tianjizi had died to save Emo-ze, and Emo-chun had also ascended to the ninth heaven. Now, there was no one here. Perhaps, in a few years or decades, this place would be forgotten. Thinking of this, she was slightly moved. Her gaze fell on a rock that was half the height of a person not far away. She slowly walked over. With a move of her hand, the Qingfeng sword appeared in her hand. She injected spiritual energy into the sword in her hand, and the sword moved at will. She carved the words "Immortal Peak" on the rock that was half the height of a person. Then, she carved smaller words at the bottom, indicating that the master of Sky Mountain, Tianjizi's disciple, Nalen Emo-chun, had ascended to the ninth heaven. Finally, the person who carved the words was the ghost Dr. Fengjiu. She did not leave immediately. Instead, she prepared to stay here for a few more days. Because if she left this time, she probably would not come back again. In Upper Immortal World, Qing Emperor brought along his 3 disciples and arrived at a floating island located in the clouds. Upon entering that island, Yu couldn't help but look all around with novelty. She felt that this place was filled with immortal qi and was very beautiful. "Master, this place is so beautiful. It's like a fairyland. It's so beautiful," Yu said as she looked at the scenery filled with clouds. This is the fief of Immortal Lingmu. He is a reclusive immortal. Although this island is not very big, it is rich in spiritual energy and surrounded by celestial aura. It is very famous. Emperor Qing said slowly as he walked forward unhurriedly. When they arrived at the entrance, several immortal servants bowed to them. At this time, Emperor Qing handed over an invitation. The immortal servant opened it and took a look. Then, he closed it and bowed respectfully again. "Greetings, Emperor Qing." The white-robed and handsome immortal looked at the Lotus the Arch in front of him. He smiled and gestured for him to enter. "Lotus the Arch, please come in. My immortal father is waiting for you inside." The Lotus the Arch nodded slightly. Then he led his 3 disciples and followed an immortal envoy who was leading the way. At that place, the immortals were sitting and chatting happily. A white-haired old man stroked his beard and said with a smile, ? "Immortal Lingmu, I heard that the Azure Emperor will be attending the banquet as well. Is that true? Will the Azure Emperor come as well? He doesn't like to attend banquets. Many people want to invite him, but they can't." "Immortal Elder Lingmu, you really are a big shot," a purple-robed man sitting on the other side said, his eyes full of surprise. Chapter 4766. "Oh, I see. No wonder you told us to bring our juniors along. I see." Another person laughed, seemingly very interested in the Azure Emperor's arrival. Back then, Emperor Qing took in a disciple. However, that disciple died in a tribulation. I didn't expect that he would take in 3 more disciples. However, there are many people who want to become Emperor Qing's disciples but don't have the chance. Thinking about it, the 3 disciples he took in must be extraordinary. Coincidentally, I can take this opportunity to meet them today, Immortal Lingmu said with a smile, looking at the juniors sitting behind their master. The Azure Emperor's disciples must be extraordinary. It's a rare opportunity to meet them. We naturally can't miss it. Everyone laughed, looking forward to it. Meanwhile, outside, the Azure Supreme the Arch and his group were walking slowly towards the palace. They were walking on a small stone path. There were strange flowers and fruits on both sides. A cool breeze blew past, and the fragrance of flowers and fruits assailed their nostrils. Even Hao, and the other 2 had never seen such a place before. They felt as if all the pores on their bodies were open to breathe. It was extremely comfortable. After walking for a long distance, they finally arrived at an arched door formed by flower vines. Bright and beautiful flowers were blooming on the arched door, and there were 4 outstanding immortal servants standing at the arched door. When they saw them arrive, the 4 of them slightly bent their knees and bowed. And from inside, a loud voice sounded. "The Azure Emperor has arrived." The people who were sitting and chatting inside all stood up with smiles on their faces when they heard the honorific title of the newcomer. Even immortal Lingmu stood up with a smile and walked to the arch door. When he saw Emperor Qing, who was still as handsome as ever, immortal Lingmu smiled and cupped his hands. Emperor Qing, long time no see. You're still as elegant as ever. Immortal Lingmu. The Azure Emperor returned the greeting with a faint smile on his face. He looked at the others and nodded slightly. He cupped his hands and said, "Fellow immortals, greetings, Azure Emperor." No one dared to accept his greeting. They leaned slightly to the side and accepted half of his greeting before returning the greeting. After all, their statuses were different, so they naturally couldn't be treated the same. Even though the Azure the Arch lived in seclusion and did not care about worldly affairs, he was still a great emperor of a region. He was not someone they could act impudently toward. Thus, when they saw him, they all had to respectfully bow and lower themselves to him. We were just talking about Great Emperor Qing when he arrived. These three must be Great Emperor Qing's new disciples. Immortal Lingmu and Emperor Qing were close friends, so his tone was casual and natural, unlike the others. His gaze went past Emperor Qing and landed on the three children behind him. He was a little surprised that the three new disciples of Emperor Qing were so young. Yes, these three little fellows have been with me for a year. As the Lotus the Arch spoke, his expression softened when he mentioned his three disciples. He turned slightly to the side and looked at the three of them. "Come forward and greet immortal Elder Lingmu and the immortal lords." Hearing this, the three of them walked out from behind him and gracefully bowed to immortal Lingmu. "Yin Chun, Yin Yuan, Yin Qi. Greetings, immortal Elder Lingmu and the immortal lords." The three of them spoke at the same time. Even though they were still young, their manners were natural, their words were clear, and their expressions were natural. They immediately won the favor of the crowd. Chapter 4767. Immortal Lingmu asked casually. He thought that since these three children were so extraordinary and had such a sense of propriety at such a young age, they must be from a prestigious family. That was why he asked such a question. Unexpectedly, the Lotus Supreme Thearka's next words stunned him. "Once they become my disciples, they will only be disciples of the Cloud Sky Mountain. Their families have nothing to do with them, so there's no need to mention them," the Lotus Supreme the Arch said slowly. The Azure the Arch said slowly with a calm expression. He was probably the only one who dared to speak like this among all the people present. Everyone wanted to know which family these three children were from. Unexpectedly, when they heard this, they were stunned for a moment. They looked at each other and smiled at the same time. This was indeed the Lotus Supreme Thearka's style. After becoming the Lotus Supreme Thearka's disciples, it was best not to mention the families of the three children. Otherwise, who knew what kind of commotion it would cause? After all, if they could become the Lotus Supreme Thearka's disciples, their families would also rise along with them. Yes. There's no need to mention it. Come. This is the first time the Lotus Supreme the Arch has brought you here. I'll give you these three items as a greeting gift, Immortal Lingmu said with a smile. He took out three immortal artifacts and handed them to the three children. The three children could not help but look at their master, unsure if they should accept them. "Since it's a gift from Immortal Lingmu, you should accept it," the Lotus Supreme the Arch said, gesturing for the three children to accept it. "Yes," the three children replied. After receiving the gifts, they bowed again. "Thank you, Immortal Lingmu." "You're welcome," Immortal Lingmu said with a smile. He gestured for the Lotus Supreme the Arch to take a seat and said, "Lotus Supreme the Arch, please." He personally invited the Lotus Supreme the Arch to take a seat and sat with him. "How?" And the other two followed suit and sat behind their master, just like the others. As they sat down, the others also sat down. The immortal servants came forward to pour wine. Celestial music sounded again, and a few beautiful fairies danced in the middle. For a moment, laughter filled the air. "Lotus Supreme the Arch, we saw someone from the lower realm ascending to become an immortal today. Does the Lotus Supreme the Arch know who it is?" An elder asked. Those who ascended directly from the lower realm did not become immortal lords like them. Instead, They ascended directly to become great emperors. Their statuses were far above them. However, even with their powers, they were unable to find out who had ascended to become an immortal. Everyone knows that I don't care about worldly affairs. If I'm not in my cave, I'm in closed-door cultivation. Therefore, I only know that someone has become an immortal today, but I don't know who it is, Emperor Qing said slowly. He raised the wine cup in front of him and took a sip of the spiritual wine. I didn't expect there to be so many talented cultivators in the mortal world. Some time ago, someone also ascended to the immortal world to experience the tribulation, but he failed and died. I didn't expect that after a year, someone from the mortal world would ascend to the immortal world. It's really surprising. I heard that in the lower realm, there is a female immortal who is extremely powerful and has outstanding talent. Not only that, because of her superb medical skills in alchemy, she is respectfully called the Ghost Doctor. Her name is Fengjiu. Chapter 4768. Emperor Qing narrowed his eyes and sipped his wine. He didn't seem to be interested in what they were talking about. He didn't say anything and only listened as he leisurely drank his wine. Behind him, the three children's eyes flashed when they heard them mention their mother. They glanced at the purple-robed man who spoke and sized him up carefully. He looked to be in his 30s. Although he didn't look very old, according to their masters, he was already a pile of old bones. Taking advantage of this moment, they took a look at the juniors who were sitting quietly behind their respective masters. Almost all of them were in their teens or 20s. Only one old man had a 17 or 18-year-old youth and a 10-year-old boy behind him. Immortal Ling Mu continued the purple-robed celestial master's words and smiled. Whether that ghost Dr. Fengjiu is as good as the rumors say, I believe we will find out in the future. Come, come, come. Everyone, let this old man toast you all. Thank you all for coming to this old man's place. As he spoke, he raised his wine cup with both hands and gestured to everyone. Seeing this, everyone also raised their wine cups and bowed. Immortal Ling Mu is too kind. It is our honor to have the opportunity to come here. Everyone chatted and drank. After a while, the dancing maidservant left. Emperor Qing looked at Immortal Ling Mu and slowly said, Immortal Ling Mu, since everyone has brought their disciples here, why don't we borrow Immortal Ling Mu's Flower Water Moon Spirit Land and let them have a competition? Hearing this, everyone's hearts trembled. They couldn't help but look at Immortal Ling Mu. Would he agree? One had to know that the Flower, Water, Moon, and Spirit Realm was a good place. If they could let their disciples go in and gain experience, it would be a great blessing. It would be extremely helpful to their cultivation. The juniors didn't know what kind of place it was, so they only looked at each other and then at Emperor Qing. They didn't expect him to make such a request. But what kind of place was that? Even if the spiritual Wood Immortal agreed, would the three children behind the Lotus Supreme, the Arch, be able to compete with them? Wouldn't that be a little too arrogant? Immortal Ling Mu stroked his beard and laughed. He shook his head and smiled. I knew it. Emperor Qing hasn't come out for so many years. Why would you agree to my invitation? So that's why you came. He glanced at the three children behind Emperor Qing, and his eyes were full of smiles. He was not annoyed by Emperor Qing's request. Instead, he said, It's rare that everyone is here. It's fine to let these juniors in. However, Emperor Qing, your three disciples are the youngest here. Can you let them in without worry? Of course. Immortal Ling Mu. Alluring Ghost Doctor. Chapter 4769. That whip was truly a celestial treasure that had been passed down since ancient times. It was not something an ordinary celestial artifact could compare to. Moreover, it was said that the 9-section red flame phoenix scale whip was also known as the God-beating whip. Even cultivators with decent cultivation would find it difficult to withstand a single lash from it. Furthermore, the whip would cause one's skin to burn, and ordinary medicine would not be able to cure it. It could be said that it was an ancient divine whip that everyone knew about. However, that whip had always been with Immortal Ling Mu. Everyone had only heard of it, but had never seen it before. Immortal Ling Mu smiled and looked at Emperor Qing. Oh, you. It's rare for you to come here. So, you're here for my treasure. He chuckled and looked at Emperor Qing meaningfully. He said, That treasure is in the mirror flower, water, and moon spirit land. My master left it there. Even I can't take it out. If someone really does take it out, I'll give it to them." He smiled and looked at the immortal lords. "Everyone, it's rare for Emperor Qing to be so interested. Even if I don't agree, it's different. I wonder if your disciples would like to go in and give it a try? It's rare to have such an opportunity. It's also their opportunity. Here, we thank Immortal Lingmu on their behalf." Everyone stood up and bowed to him with cupped fists. "All right, since that's the case, please follow me." He stood up with a smile and looked at everyone. At this moment, the Lotus Arch also stood up and followed Old Man Ling Mu with the three little fellows behind him. After walking for a while, they stopped in front of a mirror stone that had the mirror flower, water, and moon spirit realm engraved on it. Immortal Ling Mu looked at everyone and said, "This is where the mirror flower, water, and moon spirit realm is. However, the strength of those who enter will be suppressed. The stronger one is, the harder will be to move around inside." He smiled and waved his sleeves. Petals flew down and turned into rays of light that entered the arms of the juniors. A beautiful flower petal appeared on the inside of each of their arms. Once you're inside, if the petals on your arms are cut, the bleeding will disappear and you'll be brought out. Similarly, if you can't hold on any longer and want to come out, cut your skin where the petals are. As long as blood oozes out, you'll come out. Do you understand? Immortal Lingmu looked at everyone and asked. Understood. Everyone responded respectfully. There's one thing you have to remember. If you die inside, you'll really die inside. So, if you have no other choice, you have to remember what I said. The petals on your arms will be your lifeline. Immortal Lingmu said again, looking deeply at them. Yes. Everyone replied again. Immortal Lingwood flicked his sleeve, and the seemingly ordinary spirit stone mirror instantly emitted a gentle light. A vortex also appeared on the mirror. Go in. Without giving their master a chance to instruct them, Immortal Ling would wave his sleeve, and all the juniors were swept into it. As they entered, the surface of the spirit stone mirror returned to normal. Seeing this, everyone looked at each other. There were some things they didn't have time to instruct, but now all of them had entered. When they thought of this, they felt as if there was something stuck in their hearts. It was very uncomfortable. Chapter 4770. Forget it. So what? This was also their own good fortune. They would just have to wait and see. Everyone, why don't we return to the front to drink and enjoy ourselves? Immortal Lingmu smiled as he looked at the crowd. Everyone looked at each other, and only then did they respond and walked back with him. Emperor Qing and Immortal Lingmu walked side by side in the front, while the others walked behind. Perhaps they were worried about their disciples, as they walked in a daze, as if they were thinking about something. Immortal Lingmu glanced at Emperor Qing and smiled. Emperor Qing, aren't you worried about the three of them? After all, they are so young. Even I'm a little worried when I see them. It was precisely because of their young age that he saw the three children holding hands when he sent the juniors into the mirror flower, water, moon spirit land. Therefore, he didn't separate them and sent them directly into the mirror flower, water, and moon spirit land. Who knew what would happen to such young children if they were separated? He and Emperor Qing had been friends for many years. Forget it, forget it. He would take it as taking care of them. Emperor Qing's lips curled up slightly when he heard that. He said unhurriedly, although the three of them are young, they are very intelligent. I am not worried. As he spoke, he turned to look at Immortal Lingmu with a smile on his face. You should worry about that whip of yours. Ha 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 ha. Immortal Lingmu laughed heartily. His eyes were full of smiles, and it was obvious that he was very happy. He said, that treasure has been with me for a long time, and there are many people who have designs on it. But how many years has it been? No one has been able to enter the mirror flower, water, and moon spiritual land to retrieve it. As he spoke, he stroked his beard and said with a smile, if your three disciples can really take it out, then I'll give you the whip. I'll also give you a set of whip technique books that my master left behind. How about that? All right, it's a deal. Emperor Qing smiled. Just don't regret it. Sigh. I'm a dignified immortal. My words carry enormous weight. Why would I regret it? As long as your three disciples can get it, I will fulfill my promise. He laughed and felt that Emperor Qing's 3 disciples would not be able to get the whip. Not to mention Emperor Qing's 3 disciples. Even other disciples would not be able to get it. If that treasure could be obtained so easily, it would not have been called an ancient treasure. At this moment, it would not still be with him. Therefore, he was completely at ease. He simply felt that those juniors entering were just going through the motions. After all, most of their disciples only followed their master around most of the time. When they were training on their own, they were still relatively young. Moreover, they were still in his catoptric deflection realm. Hearing this, Emperor Qing only smiled and did not say anything else. Celestial Elder Lingwood had never expected that he would miscalculate one day, at the same time, in the Mirror Flower Water Moon Spirit Realm. After everyone was sent in, they scattered. Only Hao Mu Chun, and Mu Yu landed alone. Chapter 4771. While the others were trying to find their senior brothers and sisters to team up to find the 9-section Flame Phoenix Scale Whip, Hao and the other 2 were already sizing up this place. Eldest senior brother, where are we going to find the whip? You are asked, because on the way here, their master had told them the main purpose of bringing them here this time. Thus, they knew early on that their master had brought them here to see the world. In fact, it was also for the precious whip here. Let's look for it first. You have to be careful to protect the pedal on your arm. Don't let anyone hurt it, lest it gets transported out. Hao reminded them. Yes, we know. The 2 younger ones responded. Let's go ahead and take a look. Hao said and motioned for them to follow him. The 2 followed him forward while paying attention to the surrounding movements. They walked for a long distance and did not meet anyone else, so they took a rest first. Eldest senior brother, second senior brother, let's protect the pedal. It's safer to make a layer of protection. While resting, Yu took out a bandage from her space and a gold coin. Then she wrapped her arm with the bandage and put down her sleeve. Hao and Mu Qin saw this and copied her to make a simple protection. After the 3 of them were done, they drank some water and continued to walk forward. Roar! There's movement! Hao whispered and motioned for them to be careful. At the same time, he restrained his breath and followed the sound all the way to the back of a big tree. When he saw the scene in front of him, his eyes flashed. In front of them was a huge gray bear beast about 2 meters tall. Every time it raised its feet and stomped down, a deep bear footprint would appear on the ground. That ferocious beast had a ferocious look and sharp fangs in its open mouth. At this time, it was pouncing on the 10-year-old boy in front of it. It's that boy. Yu blinked. She knew this person. Other than them, he was the youngest. She did not expect him to be alone. What surprised them was that although the boy was young, he was very agile. He dodged left and right to avoid the bear beast's attacks. However, he was only a 10-year-old child after all. After a while, he was panting and fell to the ground after being hit by the bear's paw. He spat out a mouthful of blood and was in a very sorry state. He let out a blood-curdling scream as the bear's paw slapped out. The sharp claws also scratched his body, leaving a few marks on his body. Seeing him being beaten so miserably, Yu couldn't help but bite her lips. Then looking towards her 2 brothers, she asked, "Should we help him?" Mu Qin did not speak and only frowned as he looked ahead. Hao's expression was indifferent as he said, if he doesn't want to die, he could just cut open his arm and use the flower petals to save himself. There's no need for us to save him. If we save him, he'll become our opponent in the fight for the 9-section Red Flame Phoenix Scale Whip. At that time, should we show mercy to him? Hearing what was said, Yu opened her mouth, but was unable to refute. That was because she knew that her brother was telling the truth. Furthermore, her brother's silence most likely meant that he agreed with her brother's actions, especially since her master had said that if the 3 of them were to obtain the whip would be given to her. Thinking of this, her heart became firm. Chapter 4772. 3 people were looking from one side and saw that little boy was persistently holding on. He was trying to escape from the attack of that huge bear, but that huge bear also didn't seem to want to give up on the prey that was about to reach its hands, so it ferociously attacked. Not long after, that little boy was riddled with scars and was gasping for breath. Roar! A beast roar resounded, and that huge bear pounced forward. Its mouth was wide open, and its sharp teeth were about to bite the neck of that little boy. Perhaps because he had nowhere to escape, and seeing that huge bear was about to bite him, that little boy was so scared that his complexion turned pale. Then he clenched his teeth and raised his hand to cut the flower petal on his arm. Along with the blood seeping out, that flower petal instantly changed into a ray of light and enveloped that little boy. With a flash of light, at the same time that huge bear pounced forward, that little boy also disappeared. Seeing this scene, Yer couldn't help but lightly exhaled, and her anxious heart finally relaxed. Roar! That huge bear stretched out its sharp claws and scratched on the ground, and at the same time, it also left behind several deep claw marks on the ground. After that, it looked all around, it raised its head and roared twice. Then, using both its hands and feet, it ran forward. Seeing that huge bear had left, 3 people who were hiding not far away looked at each other, then continued to walk forward. Just at this time, a voice came from behind them. 3 people, please wait. Hearing this voice, 3 people stopped their footsteps, then turning their head, they vigilantly took a glance. They saw that the people who had arrived were 1 male and 1 female. Their ages were around 20 years old. The male wore blue-colored embroidered gown, and the female wore white-colored gown. Both of their appearances were very outstanding. They also remembered these 2 people. They were the disciples of that purple-robed male who had mentioned about their mother. Previously during the banquet, I didn't have the opportunity to greet 3 people, but I didn't expect to meet 3 people here. I am Li Ziming, and this is my junior sister Nangong Yiyan. We are the disciples of Z, an immortal monarch. That male said with gentle expression. Then looking at 3 people with smiling gaze, he said, "This place is extremely dangerous, and there are numerous ferocious beasts. It is rare for us to encounter such a place. How about we travel together?" At this time, before 3 people could open their mouth, the female beside said, "This is also the first time we came here. Just now we heard the sound of bear beast here. Did it injure 3 of you?" "No." He then looked at the man and said, "The 3 of us are still young. If we travel with you, we'll only cause you trouble. So, we don't need to travel with you." With such a rejection, most people would naturally leave after hearing it. Unexpectedly, the man and woman looked at each other and smiled. "It's no trouble. We're all immortal disciples, and you're still young. We have to take care of you." Without waiting for them to refuse again, the man smiled and said, "Could it be that the 3 of you are looking down on the 2 of us? Is that why you don't want to travel with us?" Hearing these words, Yu who was at one side, smiled and said, "Eldest senior brother, then let young Master Li and Miss Nangong travel with us. That way, I'll have company." Hearing this, glanced at her and saw her smiling eyes. Her small face was full of smiles. However, when those who were familiar with her saw her smile, their hearts skipped a beat. Unconsciously, the corners of their lips curled up slightly, and their expressions softened a little. Chapter 4773. Traveling together is not troublesome or not. Zhao Ziming smiled. Then looking towards Yu, he said, "Yunshi, how about we call you by your name? If you don't mind, you can call me Big Brother Li. No need to call me young master or miss." Hearing this, Yu looked at him with a smile. Her beautiful eyes were pure, and her little face was full of seriousness. My master said, "Big brother can't be casually called." Hearing this, Zhao Ziming was startled, then said with a smile, "Then big brother can't be casually called. How about calling us senior brothers and sisters?" Who would have thought that just after he said this, he saw the little girl shook her head again. "No," master said, "he only accepted us 3, so I can't call other senior brothers and sisters." Looking at the little girl's serious expression of rejection once again, the smiles on the 2 men's faces became slightly stiff. When traveling outside, when the children of aristocratic families met, some of them would address each other as brothers, senior brother, or a junior sister. Who would take it so seriously? But this little girl said with a serious face, and her pair of beautiful eyes were full of pure and innocent color. She looked like a well-protected little girl who didn't understand the affairs of the world, as pure as a piece of white paper. They who were 20 years old adults were talking to a 5 or 6-year-old child about worldly affairs and so on. It was simply playing the lute to a cow. Then, how about we call each other by name? The man smiled embarrassedly, and after a long time, he choked out such a sentence. If people of similar age called each other by name, then it was nothing but this little girl who was 10 years older than them directly called them by name. This seems somewhat, is this not suitable? Master didn't say. Ewer lightly bit her lips, blinked her beautiful eyes, and had a hesitant expression. Yes, no problem. We're all cultivators, so we don't care about this small matter. The man said with a stiff smile. The woman beside him also showed a touch of unnatural smile, and said, How about you call each other by the name of just now? Calling me Miss Nangong is also fine. There is no harm. Okay, then we will call you young Master Zhao and Miss Nangong. Ewer said with a beaming smile. Originally, she wanted to get closer to them, but who would have thought, after talking for a long time, she came back. The two of them couldn't help but look at each other with a hint of helplessness in their eyes. If not for the fact that they were Emperor Qing's disciples, why would the two of them lower themselves to befriend them? Unfortunately, these 3 children were still so young. Talking to them for a while was more tiring than fighting with the ferocious beasts. Right, did your master ever mention this 9-section flame phoenix scale whip to you? That male asked while looking at the 3 of them. Muchen glanced at them. Yes. Hearing this, the 2 of them couldn't help but feel moved. They looked at each other and asked with a trace of joy, What did he tell you? Did they say how to find the whip? Our master said that it's an ancient treasure and there's only one of it in the world. No one else said anything about it. Muchen knew that they wanted to know, but why would he tell them? Chapter 4774. Hearing these words, the 3 of them looked at him but didn't say anything. They just let him lead the way and walked forward together. On the way, Hao and Mu Chun didn't say anything. Their little faces were also indifferent and grim. It seemed that they weren't easy to get along with, especially when the 2 of them tried to talk to them several times. Hao and Mu Chun only replied with 1 or 2 simple sentences. Therefore, along the way, Zhao Ziming and Nangong Yiyan more or less figured out the temperament of these 3. Therefore, Nangong Yiyan also diverted the topic to Cloud 7, who had been smiling innocently, while Zhao Ziming occasionally talked to Hao and Mu Chun, intending to divert their attention so that Nangong Yiyan, who was 2 steps behind them, would have the opportunity to obtain some information. I heard that Cyan Emperor also had a female disciple in the past, and her name also seemed to be called Yin Qi. If he was the one who gave your name, then why would he give you the name Yin Qi? Nangong Yiyan looked towards Ewer and asked. Hearing this, Ewer smiled and said, Yes, we had a senior sister called Yin Qi, but she is no longer here. Our master said that he would give me the name Yin Qi. This way, she will always be with us. Oh, so it was like this. Then Yin Qi, what is your original name? Nangong Yiyan asked again. She was actually very curious about their identity and origin. As long as she asked for their names, she would let people investigate and naturally know which family they came from. At the front, Hao and Mu Chun were listening to Zhao Ziming's words while paying attention to Ewer's movements. When they heard Nangong Yiyan asking about their origin, both of them pursed their lips, but their expression didn't change, because they believed that their younger sister was more than enough to deal with Nangong Yiyan. Our master didn't allow us to say our original name. Ewer shook her head and said in a crisp voice, Master said that the name is only a code name. After becoming his disciple, you only need to remember that you are his disciple. If others ask, you can't say your original name. The more this was the case, the more curious they were. Just that, they thought that these 3 children were still young, so it shouldn't be difficult to get some information from them. But who would have thought that, even though they said their names, they only said some useless information? Moreover, all the things they didn't say were under the name of their master, which made them feel helpless. Be careful. Suddenly, Hao shouted in a low voice, then quickly turned around and pulled Ewer and Mu Chun and simultaneously retreated several meters away. Almost at the same time, Zhao Ziming and Nangong Yiyan's hair stood on end, and they quickly dodged. Just as they dodged, a figure as fast as light instantly collided with their previous position, causing a cloud of dust to rise. It's a mutant diamond ape. As Zhao Ziming spoke, his gaze landed on Hao who was holding the two children. Just now, his reaction was extremely fast. At that moment, even he didn't sense the danger, but he reacted one step ahead of him. Moreover, he immediately pulled his junior brother and junior sister apart. At this moment, this child named Yun Shun had shown a part of him that allowed him to have a new understanding of him. Monkey. Yer opened her eyes wide, looking at that very big monkey. She curiously looked it up and down and felt that it was different from ordinary monkey. Chapter 4775. Nangong Yin's beautiful face had a trace of graveness as she said, "Look at its eyes. Its eyes are red, so it is a variant ape. This kind of ape is originally a strength-type ape. In addition to its mutation, it is a combination of speed and strength, making its fighting strength extraordinary. Moreover, the most important point is that this kind of ape is a social species. I am afraid there is more than one of them." Hiss, roar. They heard that diamond ape scuttling out from its mouth, then suddenly howled. That sound was extremely loud and clear, immediately spreading through the air and reverberating. Not good. We have to leave quickly. Zhao Ziming's complexion greatly changed, and he immediately said, "Quickly leave," is calling out to other apes. Just as his voice fell, he immediately took advantage of the fact that the variant diamond ape had not yet reacted to attack them. But to their surprise, just as they were about to leave, they heard a cry of alarm. Quickly leave, quickly leave. Eldest senior brother, second senior brother, I am so scared. Master said that if there is danger, we have to quickly escape. You, cried out in alarm, and almost as soon as her panicked voice fell, they saw her pulling her two senior brothers and rushing forward. That speed was so fast that they were unable to regain their senses for quite a while. Because of the speed of these three people, both of them were stunned, so when they came back to their senses and wanted to call out to them, that variant diamond ape had already scuttled out and waved a fist towards them. "Xiao, senior brother, be careful," Nangong Yin cried out in alarm. She saw that the fist of that huge ape was carrying a powerful wind as it waved toward Zhao Ziming. Its strength was so great that it made people tremble with fear. At that moment, Zhao Ziming also came back to his senses, and he quickly dodged, but he could still feel the terrifying strength of that fist as it passed by his head. Because they were facing the speed and strength of this diamond ape. Moreover, they were also worried that a group of apes would come over and besiege them, so they didn't dare to continue fighting and only wanted to look for an opportunity to escape. However, just as the two of them avoided the mutant diamond ape and chased after the three children, they heard a cry of surprise. Not long after, they saw the three children running back like the wind. Quickly run. A lot of monkeys are chasing after us. Yu shouted, and at this time her little short legs were running very fast. Dust rolled up under her feet, and on her left and right were her two brothers. It was not that they didn't want to fight, but the speed of this group of monkeys, no, this group of apes was too fast. Moreover, there was a large group besieging them. Their fists smashed towards them, and they could only watch helplessly as that huge ape. That kind of terrifying fighting strength, they didn't dare to fight. Zhao Ziming and Nangong Yuyan, who were preparing to flee in their direction, saw the group of howling giant apes chasing after the three children and immediately turned pale with fright. "See, Yuyan said, you of them. Yous quickly run. Run. He said you of them of yous is he use he of he why three they were in. Yeah, of course, and them, of them, of course, they, of them, them, of them, them. In Chapter 4776. You wait for us, Zhao Ziming shouted. Then gritting his teeth, he ran with all his might. Nangong Yuyan, who was a few steps behind, because she was not lightly frightened by those huge apes, she also used 100% of her speed to run for her life. The few of them ran all the way into the depths of the forest. The giant apes chased them for a long distance. Then, for some unknown reason, they gradually came to a stop. They only howled in the same place, but no longer chased after them. Our trio ran while looking back, and only after they no longer saw those huge apes, they heavily exhaled and stopped to rest. When Zhao Ziming and Nangong Yin arrived at their location, they only saw 3 of them holding their knees and half bending their waist while gasping for breath. Because they had run for quite a long distance, 3 of them were sweating a lot, and their little face was also red because of the heat. "You, how did you run so fast?" Zhao Ziming slightly gasped for breath, and with one hand on his waist, he came to their side and asked. Nangong Yin was so tired that she didn't even want to speak and directly sat down under a tree at the side. While gasping for breath, she took out a water to drink. Master said, even if our cultivation isn't high enough, but our ability to escape must be practiced to high level. So we're not good at other things, but our ability to escape is absolutely first-rate. Yuer's little face was red, and blinking her pair of beautiful eyes, she seriously lied. Not only their ability to escape was first-rate, they also had the ability to defend themselves. Otherwise, their master wouldn't have let them come here. Not to mention, they were already accustomed to those ferocious beasts and so on. If they were not worried about releasing the ancient aura within their body, then as long as they called out their contract beasts or released the ancient aura within their body, those huge apes naturally wouldn't dare to chase them again. But they also remembered the words of their master. Unless it was absolutely necessary, they couldn't call out their contract beasts, so as to avoid some people with ulterior motives to investigate their origin. Hearing her words, both of them glared at the 3 of them, and for a long time they were speechless. How could their ability to escape be first-rate? Even the 2 of them couldn't catch up to their speed, which showed that they were extraordinary. However, what made them stunned and incredulous was that they were clearly so young. So how did they train to escape? Nangong Yin looked at the 3 of them and said, "I didn't expect that you would be able to cultivate such a set of footwork in just a year or so of time. You are truly heavenly and intelligent, and your innate talent is outstanding. No wonder Emperor Qing accepted you as his disciples. The 2 of you, there are many dangers in here, and there are many ferocious beasts. I think it's better if we split up to avoid attracting the attention of the ferocious beasts." Ow! I looked at the 2 of them and didn't wait for them to say anything. He cupped his hands and said, "Please." She then turned to Mu Chun and Yuer. "Come with me." "All right." The 2 of them replied. Yuer looked towards both of them. Then, beaming with smiles, she waved her hand and said, "Then we will leave first. Take care of yourselves." "Hey, you guys." Zhao Ziming had just opened his mouth when he saw that the 3 of them had already rushed into the forest. He couldn't help but open his mouth, but couldn't say anything. Chapter 4777. Zhao Ziming smiled bitterly. Not only are they not simple, but they're also very smart. The 3 of them may look young, but their reactions can't lie. Even if they didn't show anything special, just based on their previous moves and Yun Chen's reaction when he sensed the danger before me, I can tell that they aren't incompetent people. As he spoke, he sighed softly and said, "How can a disciple of Emperor Qing be an ordinary person? We thought they were too young, so our first impression was the strongest. Senior brother, I think we should follow them. Maybe they'll find the 9-section Red Flames Phoenix Scale Whip first." Nangong Yin said thoughtfully. She looked at him and said, "I think they didn't tell us the truth. Since Emperor Qing brought them here, it's impossible that he didn't mention it to them. Let's follow them." Zhao Ziming said. He didn't have time to rest and immediately chased after them with her. Some of the elder immortal's disciples in other places were injured, while others were teleported out. Some of them were in groups, while others were searching for the 9-jointed flame Phoenix Scale Whip alone. There were also some who were being chased by fierce beasts as they fled in all directions. Yuer followed her 2 brothers. Occasionally, when she saw some spiritual herbs, she couldn't help but squat down and dig for them. Mu Chun stood guard beside you while she was digging for spiritual herbs. When he noticed the 2 people secretly following them, he couldn't help but look at their eldest brother. "Eldest senior brother, they've been following us." Howard glanced at them and said, "Find a chance to shake them off. I'm done digging." Eldest senior brother, second senior brother, let's go, Ewer said with a smile. Thus, the three of them looked at each other and walked at a leisurely pace. Gradually, they picked up their pace and walked faster and faster, preparing to shake off the two people behind them. At this time, just as the two of them were about to chase after them, the three men who were walking together saw them and called out, Brother Zhao, Miss Nangong. Helpless, the two of them could only stop and look at the three people who were walking quickly towards them. While Zhao Ziming and Nangong Yin were being held back, Hao and the other two had already sped up their pace and went deeper. At the same time, the masters in the Mirror Flower Water Moon Spirit Realm were drinking wine and chatting in front. Although everyone was chatting casually, they were all worried about their own disciples. They wanted to know if they had gained anything from the inside. However, even if they wanted to, they were powerless to help. They could only wait here. On the other hand, the few disciples who were injured and came out first were sitting quietly behind their master with their heads lowered. They seemed to be a little ashamed and self-blaming. They were ashamed that they had exited the Mirror's Flower, Water, and Moon Spirit Realm so quickly. They blamed themselves for not being able to gain face for their master, and instead being eliminated so early. However, there was one thing that was clear. The injuries they had suffered inside had disappeared without a trace after they exited the Mirror Flower, Water, and Moon Spirit Realm. It was as if what they had experienced inside was nothing more than an illusion. Chapter 4778. Emperor Qing, you don't seem to be worried about your three disciples? Immortal Lord Zinan, who was dressed in a purple brocade robe, played with his wine cup as he looked at the leisurely Emperor Qing. Hearing his words, the others who were talking paused for a moment and looked at Emperor Qing with a strange light in their eyes. From a moment they entered until now, 5 disciples had come out. However, the 3 young disciples of Emperor Qing had not been sent out yet. This was somewhat out of everyone's expectations. Could it be that the 3 children had experienced hundreds of battles at such a young age? Did they have absolute strength to deal with everything inside? In an instant, everyone's thoughts were floating as they guessed. The Lotus Emperor took a sip of the spirit wine and smiled. What's there to be worried about? He said unhurriedly. If they can't handle it, they will naturally come out. However, since my 3 disciples have already entered, they will definitely not return empty-handed. As he spoke, he smiled and looked at Immortal Lingmu beside him. With a flip of his hand, he took out a luminous pearl that was difficult to hold in his palm and said, Immortal Lingmu, I obtained this luminous pearl a few years ago. I didn't bring a gift this time, so take this pearl as a gift for you. Immortal Lord Lingmu laughed when he heard that. He took the luminous pearl with both hands and said, Emperor Qing, you are really confident. Are you really that confident that your 3 disciples will be able to obtain the treasure in the Mirror Flower, Water, and Moon Spirit Land? They had known each other for many years and naturally knew why Emperor Qing took out this pearl. However, Immortal Lord Ling Mu still did not believe it and found it funny. They were merely 3 children who had only been by his side for a year. How could they obtain the ancient divine whip from there? Just keep it. Emperor Qing smiled and did not say anything else. All right, it is rare to see a luminous pearl this big. Furthermore, its luster is so beautiful. It is indeed a rare treasure. Since it is a gift from Emperor Qing, I will shamelessly accept it. He stroked his beard and said with a smile as he called over an immortal servant to keep the luminous pearl. Immortal Lord Ling Mu looked at the crowd and smiled. I believe everyone is curious about their encounters and adaptability inside. Since that is the case, let us watch from here. It's also good to see the performance of the disciples. As he spoke, he took out a mirror from his sleeve and threw it into the middle of the banquet. The mirror flashed with light and stopped in midair between them. The mirror clearly reflected the scenery of the Mirror Flower Water Moon Spirit Land. It just so happened that the image in a mirror was the image of Emperor Qing's 3 disciples. In the image, the 3 of them were sitting under a tree, resting, drinking water, and talking. However, at this moment, a giant python came from not far away, hissing. Even when they heard it from outside, they couldn't help but feel their hearts skip a beat. However, The three children didn't seem to notice it. Seeing this, everyone couldn't help but look at Emperor Qing. However, he wasn't worried at all. He just sat there with a lazy and leisurely expression. As he gently swirled the wine cup in his hand and tasted the spirit wine in the cup, he looked at the scene in the mirror as if he was watching a show as an outsider. Chapter 4779. Emperor Qing swirled the wine in his cup and said with a smile, "This emperor heard that Zi, an immortal monarch, had obtained a purple sun gold silk soft armor. Why don't we make a bet? Let's see if this huge python ate my 3 disciples, or if my disciples killed this huge python." Hearing this, Zi, an immortal monarch's eyes flickered and said, "Emperor Qing wants my purple sun gold silk soft armor? I wonder what item Emperor Qing will bet if I use that purple sun gold silk soft armor as a bet." Emperor Qing smiled and said, "This emperor has too many treasures. I wonder which one immortal monarch has taken a fancy to?" Haha, since Emperor Qing has spoken, then how about we use Emperor Qing's sky connecting immortal seal as a bet? Zi, an immortal monarch, looked at Emperor Qing and said, "Sure." The Azure Arch smiled and agreed. Just when his voice fell, that huge python also instantly scuttled forward, opened its huge snake mouth, and bit towards you. Everyone present could not help but hold their breaths when they saw this scene. However, unexpectedly, that little girl who was smiling and chatting with her 2 senior brothers just a moment ago rolled on the ground and pulled out a dagger from her boot. Almost reflexively, she attacked the python's tail that was swinging toward her. Her speed was fast, and her attack was fierce. Everyone present could not help but be startled. The moment the dagger attacked, that little girl's body actually emitted a fierce killing intent. The aura around her body also changed in an instant. Just a moment ago, she still had an innocent and harmless smile, but in the next moment, she revealed a decisive and ruthless killing intent. This change happened in an instant. Everyone who saw it could not help but be shocked. Moreover, not only did the little girl's reaction was fast, even the 2 little boys' reaction was extremely fast. They quickly retreated when that huge python rushed forward. However, when they saw the little girl dealing with that huge python, they did not go forward to help. Instead, they stood at the side and watched. When Immortal Ling Mu saw this scene, his hand that was stroking his beard could not help but pause. A trace of surprise also appeared on his face. Obviously, they didn't expect that the little girl would dare to deal with the giant python alone. Moreover, her 2 senior brothers didn't even come forward to help. Emperor Qing only watched quietly. However, his eyes were filled with gentleness and pride. This was his disciple. Even though he was still young, he had extraordinary courage and outstanding skills. Looking at the excitement in the little girl's eyes, he reckoned that she wanted to catch the python's gallbladder to use as medicine. Thinking of this, he secretly shook his head. He felt a little helpless, but also a little doting. Zi, an immortal monarch, was probably the only one with an ugly expression. Compared to the shock and surprise on the faces of others, Zi, an immortal monarch's face, was rather dark. After all, he was someone with such a high level of cultivation. He was naturally able to tell whether someone was capable or not. The little girl was still young, but the strength she used when she attacked with the dagger, as well as the fierce attack and extremely fast speed, were enough to tell him that he had misjudged her. Especially since this little girl was holding a dagger and had used a fatal move as soon as she made her move. It wasn't some fancy move. Seeing her turn around and leap forward to stab at the python's vital point, his heart couldn't help but tighten. It looked like he would have to hand over his purple sun gold soft armor. Chapter 4780. Seeing this, he could not help but rejoice. He knew that the little girl was only 5 or 6 years old. How could she possibly defeat the python? Seeing the little girl being wrapped up by the python's tail, he could not help but glance at Qing Yi. Perhaps not only could he keep his purple sun gold silk soft armor, but he could also obtain Emperor Qing's treasure. That would be great news. Thinking of this, the corners of his mouth curled up imperceptibly. However, his face was filled with worry. He said, "Sigh, Emperor Qing, look, the little girl has been wrapped up by the python's tail. You should know that the python's strength is not light. Even an adult's bones would be crushed by it, let alone a child. Although he said that, he was not worried at all. As long as the little girl could not take it, she would be sent out. Of course, if she was sent out, he would win the bet with Emperor Qing. However, Emperor Qing's expression did not change. He only glanced at him indifferently before looking away. His gaze seemed to be saying that he could not be bothered to talk to him. Seeing this, he could not help but feel embarrassed, but he did not dare to show it. Haha, Xenan Immortal Master, just watch. It's not over yet. Immortal Ling Mu stroked his beard and smiled. He had a whole new level of respect for Emperor Qing's 3 disciples. Furthermore, up until now, the 2 boys had only been watching and had not approached. If the little girl really could not handle it, the 2 of them would naturally step forward to help her. Why would they stand quietly by the side and do nothing? Just as he finished speaking, he heard a surprised voice. Look! An Immortal Master looked at the scene in the mirror. He saw that the python's tail that was tightly wrapped around the little girl had suddenly loosened. The python's body twitched. The little girl took this opportunity to stab the python's weak point with her dagger. The dagger in her hand pierced deeply into the python's weak point. When the dagger was pulled out, a pillar of blood spurted out. This! The python hissed. It wanted to turn around and bite her, but it seemed to be powerless. The python's head fell to the ground with a thump. At this moment, the little girl hurriedly stabbed the python again. After confirming that the python was dead, she smiled at her 2 senior brothers. Looking at the smile on the little girl's face, everyone's face was filled with shock. That was a giant python at the level of a holy beast. Even if they were here watching, they still couldn't figure out how she killed that giant python. The Xenan Immortal Lord's expression was somewhat unsightly. He pursed his lips and glanced at the Azure Emperor. Then he said with a fake smile, "The Azure Emperor's disciple is indeed different from the rest. He is so decisive and skilled at killing at such a young age. Immortal Monarch Xenan, you praise me too much. These 3 disciples of this emperor are only slightly more talented than others. They are able to understand everything with just a hint." The Azure Emperor smiled gently. He swirled his wine cup gently and took a sip of wine. When the surrounding people saw this, they all looked at each other and then smiled to smooth things over. They said, "I wonder how the other disciples are doing?" Chapter 4781. Inside Mirrored Flower Water Moon Spirit Realm, Hao and Mu Chun walked over after seeing Yu kill the huge python. Originally, they wanted to help, but Yu said she could do it and also told them to stay away, so they just watched from the side. They didn't expect that she was really able to kill the huge python, although she used some medicine to deal with that python, but no matter what, she was the one who killed it. Eldest senior brother, second senior brother, wait for me. I want to take out this snake's gallbladder and use it as medicine. Yu said without raising her head. While holding a dagger, she cut open that huge python's body. Originally, it was hard for a person to hold the snake's body, but it was cut open by this little girl, just like that. The bloody scene made people feel disgusted, but this little girl nevertheless had a serious expression. After finding the snake's gallbladder, she carefully took it out, then took out a bottle from her space and put that snake's gallbladder inside the bottle, then put it away. Everyone in the banquet saw the scene of that little girl cutting open the snake's body, taking out the snake's gallbladder and digging out the beast's core, and couldn't help but somewhat shudder. That skillful movement, as if she had already done this kind of thing no less than 100 times, really made them shocked. Immortal Ling Mu took a deep breath, and seeing that bloody scene, he waved his hand and changed the scene. At this time, an immortal elder asked, "Qing Emperor, although your disciples are young, but their technique is extremely skillful, I wonder how Qing Emperor usually trained them? How can you teach them such skillful technique at such a young age?" The Qing Emperor looked at the switched image and withdrew his gaze in boredom. Only then did he answer the immortal elder's question. "Not long ago, I let them train outside alone for a month. My eldest disciple brought back 300 crystal cores of ferocious beasts. Among them, there are many ferocious beasts at the peak of the holy beast level." As he spoke, his voice paused, and he took a sip of wine. Under their shocked gazes, he continued, As for the two little ones, they are also separated. However, they each brought back 100 crystal cores for me. Among them, there are naturally many crystal cores of saint beasts. So it's just a python. Each of my 3 disciples is capable enough to deal with it. So you clearly knew that your little disciple would definitely kill the huge python, but you still enticed me to make a bet? Zine, an immortal elder, looked at him with unsightly expression, feeling that he was cheated. Ha ha! Qing Emperor laughed, and his laughter contained indifference and coldness. If it wasn't for Z, an immortal elder's greed, why would you make a bet with this emperor? Moreover, why didn't I look for the others but you? Hearing this, Z, an immortal monarch, felt a stifling anger in his heart. He wanted to vent it, but could not. In the end, he could only say in an embarrassed and angry voice, Emperor Qing is truly skilled. You flatter me. The Lotus Emperor replied casually. Z, an immortal elder, aren't they your 2 disciples? Asked an immortal elder, sitting to the side, trying to change the topic so as to prevent the situation from escalating. And my 2 disciples, another immortal elder smiled, his gaze also landing on the scene in the mirror. Who would have thought that my eldest disciple would end up together with your 2 disciples? Another immortal monarch smiled. Chapter 4782. As it turned out, they had been ambushed by 2 huge bears after traveling together for some distance. Originally, they had worked together to fend them off, but the commotion from the battle had attracted a group of mutated Vajra apes. The apes did not approach them. Instead, they roared from the side as if they were waiting for an opportunity to attack. In such a situation, when the situation was getting more and more dangerous and their fighting strength was gradually decreasing, the 2 disciples of Z, an immortal monarch, actually took advantage of the other 3's carelessness to push them out to block the 2 ferocious bear beasts, while the 2 disciples took advantage of the opportunity to quickly escape. The expressions of the 3 disciples' masters became very ugly when they saw this. Their faces that had been smiling earlier had turned cold in an instant. They spoke with a mocking tone. An immortal monarch has truly taught a good disciple. For a cultivator to possess such treacherous thoughts and methods, it can be seen that they will not be able to go far on the path of immortality in the future. The other elder sighed and shook his head. Come to think of it, this old man is ashamed. I only taught them how to cultivate and warned them to be humble and courteous when dealing with people and to not have the heart to harm others. Yet I didn't teach them that the ways of the world are sinister and that they must always be vigilant. I'm ashamed. Zine, an immortal monarch's face alternated between green and red when he heard their words. He felt both angry and ashamed. The 2 disciples were so useless that they actually did such a thing in there, making him unable to raise his head in front of everyone. He understood the 2 people's sarcastic words, but he couldn't even open his mouth to refute. After this matter, he was afraid that in the future, the eyes of others would be different. In the end, he took a deep breath and suppressed the shame and anger in his heart. He stood up and cupped his hands towards the 2 people. He said apologetically, It's my fault for not disciplining them properly. That's why the 2 of them did such a thing. I'm really ashamed of myself. I apologize to the 2 of you. When we return, I'll definitely punish the 2 of them severely. The 2 of them did not pursue the matter further when they saw him apologizing. Their expressions softened as they said, As immortals, our cultivation is secondary. Temperament is the most important thing. Even though Z, Nen, Immortal Lord's 2 disciples are outstanding, if their temperament is impure, they will only bring trouble to themselves in the future, let alone go far on the path to immortality. Since Z, Nen, Immortal Lord, has apologized on their behalf, we won't pursue the matter any further. Let's leave it to them to decide on their own. Z, Nen, Immortal Monarch, only revealed an unnatural smile. He bowed toward them again before sitting down. The others watched with various expressions, but they did not say anything. They only watched the scene in the mirror. In the end, the 3 people who were pushed out were heavily injured by the bear. They had no choice but to cut open the flower petals and teleport out of the spirit land to save themselves. Everyone had different thoughts when they saw this scene. They looked at each other, and not long after, they saw the three people walking back from nowhere. "Master, Master!" The three of them clasped their hands and bowed. Their faces were still filled with anger as they looked at Z, an immortal monarch. "All right, we all know. Sit down and rest." Their master gestured for them to sit behind him. They could only sit behind their master when they saw this. After they sat down, their junior brothers began to tell them what had happened earlier. Chapter 4783. Time seemed to pass very quickly in the mirror. After day, it was night, and after night, it was day again. The people at the banquet outside kept watching while drinking and chatting, but time passed very slowly. However, as time passed, more and more disciples were sent out. When it was evening, there were only 3 disciples of the Azure Emperor and 2 disciples of the Z, an immortal monarch left. As for the remaining 5 people, some people felt that it was inconceivable, while others felt that it was natural. Those disciples were even more shocked and surprised after seeing the performance of Emperor Qing's 3 disciples. Most of them were curious and wanted to befriend them. However, they also knew that, not to mention their mysterious origins, just the fact that they were Emperor Qing's disciples already made them superior to them. Coupled with the age gap, they could only think about befriending them. Inside the Mirror Flower Water Moonland, the surroundings were pitch black as night fell. How? And the other 2 lit a small fire and roasted the beast meat they hunted. Smelling the fragrance of the meat, Ur swallowed her saliva greedily. "Eldest senior brother, is it done? Can we eat it?" Howard looked at her and smiled. "Yes, it's done. I'll cut a piece for you." He cut a piece and wrapped it in a large leaf and handed it to her. "Be careful, it's hot." "Yes, yes." Ur happily took it and blew on it. She took a small bite, but it was so hot that she gasped. "Eat slowly, it's very hot," Mu Chun said, and took the piece of meat from her. He used a small knife to cut it into small pieces and handed it to her. "Eat it." He. "Thank you, second senior brother." She smiled and looked at her 2 brothers who doted on her. One was roasting meat for her, and the other was cutting meat for her. She was very happy. Both of her brothers were very good to her. She also wanted to be very good to them. In the future, she would not let anyone bully them. The 3 ate in the dark, and after sprinkling some medicine around, they rested around the fire until the next morning. They set off again and arrived at the final destination of this trip. It was a mountain peak with flowing water in the depths. A waterfall flowed down from above, splashing water everywhere. In this place, there were no ferocious beasts around. Only the sound of the waterfall hitting the rocks below could be heard. "How come there is nothing here?" Ur looked all around and again looked towards her 2 brothers. "Let's look for it. It should be around here." As Hao spoke, he released his divine sense to search the surroundings. Unexpectedly, before he could find the 9-section flame phoenix scale whip, he instead discovered the 2 people that were concealed in the shadows. After Hao noticed them, he paused for a moment. After thinking for a while, he said, "Since the 2 of you are here, why don't you come out and meet me?" Hearing this, Mu Chun and Mu Miua looked at each other and followed their brother's gaze. They saw 2 figures slowly walking out of the forest not far away. "Ha ha ha, what a coincidence. I didn't expect to meet you here." Zhao Ziming smiled and cupped his hands at them. He looked at the 3 of them meaningfully and said, "To be able to make it this far, you guys are really not simple." Chapter 4784. They saw a Luan Feng emitting fiery red flames let out a cry and circled in the sky. After chirping twice at them, it stopped on a rock above the waterfall and looked down at them from above. Seeing the Luan Feng, Hao Mu Chun, and Mu Yu's eyes lit up. Their master had told them that the ancient phoenix scale whip was transformed from this Luan Feng. It was said that this Luan Feng had a trace of the phoenix's bloodline. If they could subdue it, they could transform it into the ancient phoenix scale whip and use it for themselves. "That's a Luan Feng?" Its aura seems to be... As Zhao Ziming spoke, he looked thoughtfully at the Luan Feng. It was unknown what he was thinking. "So beautiful. I didn't think there would be such a divine bird here." Nangong Yin couldn't help but say, as a woman, she naturally liked beautiful things. Compared to the astonishment of the 2, Hao and the other two were very calm. After the three of them looked at each other, they nodded imperceptibly. Hao opened his mouth and said, "There are only 5 of us left. Instead of fighting for the Phoenix Scale Whip in the end, why don't we decide the victor first? What do you think?" Hearing this, the two's eyes flashed. They looked at the three and thought for a moment. If they decided the victor first, they wouldn't have to worry about the three's tricks when it came to fighting for the Phoenix Scale Whip. They could focus on fighting for the Phoenix Scale Whip. Not to mention, even if the three's skills were good, they were still a bit lacking compared to the two of them. 2 against 3, their chances of winning were still very high. Thinking of this, the two looked at each other and imperceptibly nodded. "That's fine." With that, Zhao Ziming looked at the three and said, "If it's one-on-one, we'll be suspected of bullying the weak. Even if we win, it won't be honorable. How about 2 against 3? The 3 of you can come at me together." Although his words were pleasant to hear, if the 3 of them attacked together, their battle strength would increase even more. They thought that the 3 children were too young to know this, but they didn't know that the people outside the mirror saw their words and actions. Hao and the other 2 were even more well aware. However, since they were confident, they did not refuse. After all, they only wanted to send them out of the spirit realm as soon as possible so that they could seize the whip. Thus, they allowed them to make such a decision. "All right," Hao replied. He unsheathed his sword and said, "Let's fight here." "All right." Zhao Ziming and the other 2 nodded and walked forward. Holding their swords in their hands, they cupped their fists and bowed. "Then we'll have to offend you." As soon as they finished speaking, the 2 didn't hesitate and immediately drew their swords and attacked the 3 of them. Hao, Mu Chun, and Yu other than Yu who was holding a dagger in her hand, Hao and Mu Chun were holding a sword in their hand. With a casual wave of the sword in their hand, swift and fierce sword aura streaked across the blade of the sword, shooting towards the 2 people in front of them. The 3 of them had undergone strict training, and their skills were far superior to those of their age. Moreover, they had outstanding talents, and their attainments in swordsmanship were beyond the reach of many people. Chapter 4785. As soon as Zhao Ziming and Nangong Yuyan exchanged blows with them, they immediately realized that their outstanding skills and extremely fast movement skills were out of their expectation. So for a moment, they were somewhat strenuous to deal with them. But at this time, they unexpectedly heard a voice full of laughter. "I also want to help," Yu said with a beaming smile. Just when her voice fell, her small figure, as if a ghost, rushed out. The dagger in her hand didn't attack other places, but specifically aimed at the arms of these 2 boys, wanting to cut open the transfer flower petal on their arms. Originally, Zhao Ziming and Nangong Yuyan felt that these 2 boys were somewhat difficult to deal with, but when they saw that little girl actually held a dagger and aimed at the inner part of their arms, they were both anxious and alarmed. On one side, they quickly dodged, and on the other, they blocked the fierce attacks of these 2 boys. Under the joint attack of these 3 boys, after fighting for a while, these 2 boys were forced to retreat little by little. "Xiao! Clang! Xiao! This!" Nangong Yuyan's arm was cut by Yu Merely, it wasn't cut on the inner part of her arm. At the same time, she sucked in a mouthful of cold air, and seeing the blood seeping out of her arm, a touch of anger flashed through her eyes, and she glared at Yu "Senior brother, I will send this little girl out first," Nangong Yuyan said, while gritting her teeth, letting him support himself. Turning around, she waved her sword towards the innocent and ignorant Yu and the place where the sharp sword in her hand was aimed was Yu's arm. Seeing Nangong Yuyan waving her sword to attack her, it was slightly surprised, and blinking her beautiful big eyes, she quickly retreated and said in her soft voice with some seriousness and curiosity, "Miss Nangong, do you like to pick soft persimmons to pinch? But I'm not a soft persimmon." Saying this, her eyes curved, and she looked at Nangong Yuyan with a beaming smile. "My master said that I am very powerful, and will be even more powerful in the future." While speaking, the aura of her whole body changed, and she fiercely leaned forward, changing from defense to offense. Her every move was swift and fierce, and the dagger in her hand was aimed at the fatal point of the human body, causing the complexion of Nangong Yin to greatly change, and she became flustered. Damn it! Nangong Yin cursed under her breath. Once they entered this place, their strength would be suppressed. Moreover, the higher their strength, the more difficult it would be to move around in this place. Even though they had not reached that level, the suppression of their strength had greatly reduced their skills. At this moment, seeing that she was being forced to retreat little by little, she who originally still had some leeway in her attack, clenched her teeth and ferociously attacked towards Yu'er's fatal place. If he really got hurt, then she really couldn't be blamed. After all, she had cultivated for many years, so when she became ruthless, the swift and fierce sword Aura Chi also attacked around Yu'er's body. Because of this, Yu'er's body was also cut by that swift and fierce sword Aura Chi, and traces of blood seeped out. Junior's sister, Hao and Mu Chun saw that her body was cut by the sword Chi. Although there were no big wounds, there were many small wounds. Blood seeped out from her body, blooming on her pink dress like red plum blossoms. It was extremely dazzling. "I'm fine, I can do it," Yu'er said, while using her eyes to stop them from coming over to help, letting them defeat Zhao Ziming first. "You are not my opponent," Nangong Yin said, and at the same time the sword Aura in her hand attacked. Her long sword also chopped down towards Yu'er's arm. Clang!